The first of which is the update on the Crawfordville Town Plan, an opportunity for us all, including the citizens, to provide input. Lindsay, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I'm not going to take a lot of time going over the history and what we've been doing, but I think everybody's kind of up to speed on all of the visioning that's occurred in the past, and basically we've been trying to work towards getting an implementable plan to ultimately update our land development code as necessary, or our comp plan as necessary, for the town plan. And really, we approached this project, we had an idea from the past visioning on possibly what we would find, but we didn't necessarily have a preconceived idea of where boundaries should be drawn or what incentives we should include in the town plan or the overlay district. We were letting people that participated in our charrettes and workshops this past fall provide that input. So in any event, tonight we're presenting the draft plan to the board and to the citizens. We're just looking to get some input. We want to keep it fairly informal as far as comment goes. We're going to take any input we receive tonight and revise this draft and come back to you with a final draft that hopefully the board and the community can achieve some consensus on and move forward to make some of the needed updates. So with that, again, we want to keep it fairly informal just so we can get some input from you all as well as from any interested citizens this evening. And so I'll turn it over to John, but please feel free to ask us questions or pipe in whenever you are moved to do so.
Good evening, commissioners and citizens. I see a lot of folks here that actually participated in the creation of the plan in attendance here tonight, which is great. I'm just going to actually turn this a little bit so I can see what I'm looking at. What we're going to be covering here tonight is basically an overview of the project real quick, although I think because all of you were involved in its development, I think you're aware of that. And then we're going to talk about the draft recommendations that were generated by the participants who helped out to create the plan. And at the end, what we'd like to do is just get a little bit of board discussion and direction at the end of this as it relates to those recommendations so that we can, again, like Lindsay said, tweak those recommendations and then bring the plan back to you for acceptance and further discussion. Again, the goal of this project was to kind of define the look and feel and the vision of Crawfordville, recognizing that Crawfordville is Wakulla County's downtown, and kind of accept that the challenges there that Crawfordville developed because of Crawfordville Highway. It's always been an unincorporated area, and it has developed, unfortunately, based on the land development code that was created 25 some years ago and really didn't suit a downtown area. So that's one of the challenges that we're facing here. And so the goal of this project is to develop a step-by-step implementation plan to carry you from where you are today to where you want to go. And where you want to go has been pretty clearly communicated in all of the past visioning. This project didn't do any visioning. All we did was we summarized that visioning and presented it back to the participants. This is all the visioning that you already did. Tons of visioning. You don't need to do any more visioning. But what we did was we went back and we looked at all of that, summarized it, and presented it to the public at the first meeting where we met with them. There really wasn't much change to that at all. As a matter of fact, this plan is really just to provide more detail as to how you get to implementing that vision. These are sort of some of the public outreach activities. I know that I've taken a bunch of phone calls and emails from individuals who had questions along the way. But these were the main kind of points. I just added the Wakulla County Chamber of Commerce that we participated in. We did a presentation on Tuesday, had a real good dialogue there, but we met specifically with business and property owners in a workshop on July 27th. We did a design charrette, which is basically just the word charrette is just a multi-day planning meeting. That meeting was on the 26th, which is a Thursday, and then a Saturday, which was the 28th. That gave the consultant team time on Friday to crank out production on the stuff that the public said they wanted on Thursday, and then we presented that on Saturday. Very spirited conversation. I think we had a great cross-section from your community. We had differing opinions at every one of these things, and I think also the chamber meeting, I think, was very enlightening to us, and we got some real good input from them on Tuesday, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But I would actually encourage folks from the audience, either who participated in the charrette or the workshop or the chamber meeting, to speak tonight and talk a little bit about their perspective on all this, not just so you're hearing it from me. Now what I'd like to do is just kind of walk you through the draft recommendations. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them as we're running through this. Some of these recommendations are very detailed and specific. Some of them are kind of general. But basically, the first thing that we really had to do was define the area. And anytime we draw a line on a map, I'm always kind of cringing as a planner, because anytime you draw a line on a map, it can be a very contentious issue. However, I would say as part of this effort, it really wasn't that difficult for us to get there. The reason it wasn't was, fortunately for us, we had sort of national forest boundaries. We had other logical boundaries. We had a roadway boundary to the east that made a lot of sense. And these drawings that you see here are just a sample of some of them. But as you can see, folks pretty much kind of came up with the same line. And we really haven't messed with that line much. And you'll see it here in a moment. So we kind of got to what we call the Crawfordville Planning District and core areas. And I'll describe those here in a minute. This is the Crawfordville Planning District. Originally, when we first started talking about this project, we referred to the Crawfordville overlay area. And we kind of simplified that a little bit. But what you see here, this is basically our study area. And it can become something that's indoctrinated in your comprehensive plan. You'll see this later in our recommendations, where future higher densities and intensities can be concentrated in the Crawfordville area. So it's a very important kind of area. And as you can see, I was talking about those roadway boundaries. You got East Ivan Road, you got Cager Posey Road, and down to the south, and then some other kind of logical termini for the boundary. Within that, though, we've also got what we call the Crawfordville core area. And this was an area that was actually generated by the public as an area that should even have more focus, more density and intensity, and more attention paid to Crawfordville Highway. And I'll talk a little bit about what it means in terms of those densities and intensities and roadway characteristics here in a moment. The plan has a lot of recommendations that are beyond the ones I'm presenting here tonight, but they're more minor, and I'm not going to go through all those more minor recommendations, but the plan has a very good description of each one of the recommendations in it, and also we've included implementation strategies and funding sources for each one of those, so that we don't have to wonder how we're going to pay for this stuff. So we've jump-started the implementation on a lot of this. And so there's a lot of detailed maps in the plan. One of the things that we've done is, through the process with the public, we've recognized that they are willing and wanting to have additional densities and intensities in the Crawfordville area. One of the things that we looked at early on, we actually heard this when we were doing the EAR report, was that Urban 1 and Urban 2 really don't really meet the needs of Crawfordville, and that in order to support some of these downtown-type infrastructures, you need to have more density and intensity, and it would certainly open up Crawfordville for additional economic development. So what we did was, the column to the left is what is existing. There is Urban 1 and Urban 2. And what we've decided to do is kind of throw out some different terminology and add a couple of additional land use categories that could be added to your comprehensive plan that allow for more density and intensity. And so instead of having Urban 1, we could have what we call suburban transitioning, which basically has what it has today in terms of densities and intensities. Instead of Urban 2, we would call that town transitioning, and that would carry what it has today. And again, a lot of this is dependent upon sewer and water and wastewater. And then creating a new land use category with more density possibility and more intensity from a floor area ratio perspective, Town Center 1 and Town Center 2. Actually transitioning from 15 all the way up to 20 units per acre. This would allow for higher residential uses in some areas. It would support transit in the future. It would allow for concentration of infrastructure, and it would better support business in the Crawfordville area. And so we've kind of laid that out. This is something that we can come back to maybe in the discussion session of this and discuss this in a little bit more detail. But the public generally is in agreement with this from the perspective of the folks that participated. And we think it's a good direction to go for Crawfordville, so long as you have the infrastructure to be able to support that. This is kind of just some graphics of what this stuff looks like. The top series of pictures, if you had this concentrated in an area, it would really represent 12 to 15 units per acre. It really doesn't look that bad when you look at it. Town Center 2, the 20 units per acre on up, you're going to have 3-story apartments or condominiums, 2 stories, possibly a more intensive use than that. And I'll talk a little bit about the height. Generally, the height that folks agreed to was nothing more than the courthouse. So about 3.5 stories in height for the Crawfordville area. I will say this, there were people that said they wanted 20 floors. But I would say that the general consensus was about 3.5 stories, consistent with the current courthouse. We have a lot of zoning recommendations in the plan. Some of the specific stuff related to that is creating classifications for town center uses to support the land use categories. Creating cottage commercial district, and basically in conjunction with Hudson Park and Azalea Park, possibly transitioning some commercial uses along those corridors, similar to what you might see around Lake Ella in Tallahassee, those types of commercial uses. And then creating neighborhoods serving commercial nodes, and putting criteria in the comprehensive plan where you have certain roadway intersections where it makes sense to add commercial nodes at those locations. We've got a long list, and there's actually a matrix in draft form in the plan, and after the workshop, we'll be providing this to you for your review. But in the Land Development Code, and the Land Development Code is really going to be a key implementation component for this plan. We knew that the Land Development Code needed to be updated after the comprehensive plan was updated as part of the EAR-based amendments. But we've got, because of the town plan, we've got very specific recommendations on that. For example, having within the planning district, we would suggest calling out the planning district as an overlay where certain zoning categories could be implemented within that. Providing design guidelines for things like streets, how streets are constructed within that area, how street lighting is provided, what a sidewalk should look like, etc. Leveraging incentives, things like green building incentives, best management practices such as stormwater and water treatment, parking and landscaping standards. We know that parking has always been an issue in the Crawfordville area, and certainly looking at that would be important. You have signage and wayfinding currently. We would encourage you, and the plan encourages you to continue with that and look at it comprehensively. Look at access management standards. That's something that as you move forward with 319, and I've got a lot of information on 319 here in a minute, but as you move forward with 319, pay particular attention to how you allow access management to occur, because that's going to have a significant impact on how traffic moves up and down 319. We would encourage you to use the DOT criteria. It's well laid out, it makes a lot of sense, and it supports business. Look at stormwater management and possibly piggybacking onto the 319 stormwater program. Look at urban design standards, how buildings are laid out, how the landscaping fits on certain sites, protecting water quality, sidewalks and site furnishings. We've got some recommendations here for a tree planting program, looking at building heights. Again, I mentioned the 3.5-story limitation. Looking at lighting standards, how lighting is provided, especially in transition areas where you've got commercial that butts up against residential, and address that aggressively. And again, incentives for low-impact design and green design principles, not requiring it, but offering it as an incentive so it can be implemented gradually. We also have some recommendations in there, quite frankly, to support an initiative to acquire some specific funding for the cultural and historic town square. There's actually a grant source, Our Town grant, and a grant has been submitted by Wakulla County for this purpose. Letter of interest, correct. The grant application will follow if it's selected. But this general area of the county courthouse, the county jail, that whole area being streetscaped and landscaped throughout the whole area. If that award, if that grant is successful, this grant would actually provide the funding to do all of that design and hardscaping. So a good opportunity for that. One of the things that we talked about in all of the public activities was how Crawfordville looks. That was probably the biggest thing that was discussed. People don't like the way that it looks. Sure, there were some that are fine with it, but I think the vast majority of the people that participated said, we really don't like it, could look better. And so we thought of, one of the things that really changes the way a place looks quickly is trees. And so emphasizing native species, it provides shade for pedestrians, it hides power poles. Power poles are very expensive to locate underground. You can make them virtually disappear if you have a line of trees along them. And so it'll really change and soften the whole view shed throughout the 319 area. So one of the things that we've done is we've offered a program that could either be funded possibly through development mitigation. That's how it's done in a lot of different places. It could be funded through a CRA, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. But basically, the way that type of a program could work is it could either be done where the property owner has a landscape plan that's drawn up by a landscape architect or a landscaping firm. They would present that to the county. The county would evaluate it. If it met certain criteria, the county could then fund the actual tree planting. That's the way I've seen it work in a lot of different areas, and it's actually a great way to operate it. Typically, I've seen that done in a CRA area. The same thing is true about a building facade grant program. The city of Quincy has one, Gadsden County has one. The way this works, same deal. You have to have a funding source that's dedicated to it, but basically the property owner the burden would be on them to go to an architect, draw up what you think you need to do, have it done right. They would establish a cost for it. They would apply to the county would measure that against the criteria, and then funds would be awarded for rejuvenating the way that building facades look. And I just picked that one because those folks just redid the front of Myra Jeans and it looks great. Signage and wayfinding, maybe expanding your program and adding kiosks in certain areas. We would suggest maybe doing this later on as you're implementing, not something you want to do right away, since for the most part people don't really walk in downtown Crawfordville yet, and we'll talk about how to do that. Certainly gateway features. We think this is something that could be implemented immediately. It's something that announces that you're here. It helps folks frame in their mind where the beginning and the end of it is. Right now it's kind of hard to distinguish that. Some folks might say it's the light at Walmart. Some folks say it might be at 267. It's really hard to say where it is. But we'll show you where we thought it might go and where the public said. But just kind of creating that, lighting it at night, would really set it off and make it look very attractive. We've got a lot of recommendations in there for community parks and developing concept plans for the parks. One of the advantages of developing concept plans for the parks is to reevaluate each one in terms of its usability and how they could be upgraded, and then those concept plans could actually be used. They're very simple. The concept plans are very simple to do, very low cost. But what you could use that for is actually using it for grant applications and seeking additional funding to upgrade your parks. This particular park, Azalea Park, we've even looked at how to connect that to the adjoining park and make them one linear park, and possibly even expanding it further to the north. We've got recommendations in there about readdressing the enterprise zone. The boundary that you see here is the existing enterprise zone, and I recognize that the enterprise zone boundary has been, I believe there might have been some controversy in the past about this. I don't have all the history on it, but it sounded to me like it had been discussed in the past. But one of the things that we would offer is that possibly realigning the enterprise zone with the planning area for Crawfordville so that the emphasis would be on the Crawfordville area, not all the way up and down 319, because that up and down 319 thing is the thing that really causes a lot of congestion in terms of traffic. So just something for consideration there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the whole issue of 319, because I think that one of the things that's going to make or break the implementation of the town plan is 319, and it's really the thing that is going to limit your growth, or it could mean economic prosperity in the future. One of the things that we did was we kind of dug into where 319 really is in terms of DOT and the CRTPA, the Capital Region Transportation Planning Agency, which is the regional agency responsible for planning transportation in this area. And so basically the environmental or the NEPA part of it is done, the design is completed, and they've got those plans sitting on the shelf. Even if the money were to be found tomorrow, those design plans and the environmental would all have to be updated. It's been sitting for so long that that's just a standard policy of DOT. The project for widening 319 is basically broken into three key phases. 98 to Lost Creek to Ivan Church Road, and Ivan Church Road all the way up to Leon County. And that's how DOT...
John, can I ask, is that the proposed order?
No,
Okay.
it is not. Currently, it's listed as one project, but it's broken down into 3 separate segments.
Thank you.
The reason the one in the middle is highlighted is that's the area that we think would be most beneficial to Wakulla County to focus on, because it's the part that falls in the downtown area. The current design really is not consistent with the vision for county residents. The cross-section that DOT has is consistent with the vision for 98 to Lost Creek and for Ivan Church Road to Leon County, but that section in the middle is not consistent. So what we would propose is making design changes just to that section in downtown Crawfordville. These are your existing conditions. This is the currently planned typical section, and when I say typical section, that's the slice through the roadway, and we've got the dimensions down here that DOT is proposing. This is a standard cross-section that's plopped down pretty much in urban and rural areas, and just to show you what it really looks like on the ground, this is exactly what it would look like if it was constructed tomorrow. Okay, so some observations on the cross-section, and I think this is the realization that a lot of folks from the public came up with when they looked at that as part of the development of the town plan, was that it actually is somewhat detrimental to businesses in Crawfordville because it really doesn't provide an opportunity for traffic to slow down. I think the proposed posted speed limit was about 45 miles an hour. It doesn't have any capacity for parking, and in terms of pedestrian mobility and bikes, it does have a bike lane on it, a 4-foot bike lane in an urban section or a 5-foot bike lane in a rural section, but it's not real friendly to pedestrian activity, and it also encourages large setbacks off of the road with huge parking lots, and it really challenges how you provide landscaping and make it beautiful. Now this area is actually a little bit deceiving because it's in a real rural area with a lot of trees, so it's actually making it look a lot better. This is actually the typical section that the general public came up with as part of the charrette. It's not a whole lot different in terms of capacity. Actually, this typical section, although the traffic would move through it slower, actually provides more capacity than the DOT cross-section. And by the way, this is also a standard DOT cross-section. One of the things I want to point out here, though, and some of the key differences is this area right in here and this area right in here where you can see that vehicle, those are actually parallel parking areas. And so basically all along 319 in the downtown area, you'd have areas where you would have additional parking capacity, and in a downtown area, some downtown areas function solely on that capacity. So this would be additional parking capacity beyond what you already have. It also provides better landscaping, and it's a tighter cross-section in that the lane widths are a little bit more narrow, slows the cars down a little bit, not much, so you have a lower speed limit. It would either be 35 or 40 miles an hour, but it would allow a lot more visibility on the part of the folks driving through it. And the reason I said it has more capacity than the other one, it doesn't make sense. When you slow the cars down, it actually adds more capacity because the following distances of the vehicles is reduced. So it has the ability to carry more cars. This is what it would actually look like fully implemented. And again, these are some land uses that we've kind of plopped down on it to show you what it could look like and what it would look like if the plan is fully implemented. This stuff isn't going to happen tomorrow. This is way up the road in terms of time, but this is just to show you how it all fits together and how it would all work. Virtually very little difference in cost between this cross-section and the DOT cross-section.
John, can I ask
Yeah.
clarification?
Yeah.
When you said in the downtown, are you talking about doing this just in what you call the core area?
Yes,
not
and I'll
the
show you
whole
the,
planning district?
I'll show you the map here in a minute. That's a great question. And again, some of this landscaping doesn't meet DOT criteria. We'd have to deal with that. In some areas, you have to deal with that as an exception. Some communities have done oak trees in the medians. That's dealt with as an exception. It's really a negotiated point, but typically DOT will want to put what they call breakaway species in there. And this is just kind of to show you what it looks like. To answer your question again, we've got what we would propose doing as part of this implementation strategy is to look at each one of the key intersections in the county as it relates to 319, and there really are 4 of them. And these are the intersections where those key intersections are found. What we are proposing is that Wakulla County coordinate and work with DOT and the CRTPA to do a design modification to the existing plans to individually design intersections in this order such that you would be addressing the biggest problem first, which is Wakulla Aaron Road. The second worst problem would be Ivan Church Road. Third worst would be MLK, and then 267 up here. The 267 intersection, frankly, it's possible that could be funded through another mechanism because it's a safety issue. There's actually been some documented serious accidents there. But dealing with the intersections one at a time and doing each intersection as a 4-lane intersection, similar to what was done in Leon County when the St. Joe Company actually constructed several intersections. One of them was Woodville Highway at Capitol Circle. You may recall that from about 6-7 years ago where they actually blew that intersection out. You had Capitol Circle, which is a 2-lane road, and you had Woodville Highway that was a 2-lane road, and there was delay in every direction. And what they did was they came in and made it a 4-lane intersection, 4 lanes approaching. And what happens is they taper it down at about 1,000 feet away from the intersection, back down to a 2-lane road. What that does is it opens up the capacity significantly since the delay is actually at the intersections. And so we've actually preliminarily discussed this with CRTPA just to kind of get their general thoughts on it. Same thing with DOT, just kind of ran it by them, and I think both of them were very interested in talking with Wakulla County about possibly using this strategy. What that would enable you to do is looking at what the core area would be. The first section, constructing this roadway improvement, would be looking at constructing that between the MLK road area about 1,000 feet south of that up to Wakulla Aaron Road, and then possibly in the future the segment between Wakulla Aaron Road up to Ivan Church Road. And so that basically, that area right in there between those 3 intersections would become your downtown. Phase 1 would be the south section, and Phase 2 would be the north section. And the reason why we're proposing the south section versus the north section is the south section is more related to business, government center. The courthouse is here. It has more of a feel of your downtown. The north section is more the big box store type area, the commercial area, and we even called those out separately within the plan. So just kind of identifying those as different areas. And then just to clarify, beyond north of Ivan Church and south of MLK Road, those would carry the typical section that you saw before that DOT has already proposed. So no changes there. So what we've got here is we've got a strategy that instead of looking at the $150 million number, we've now broken it down into intersection improvements one at a time, or maybe two up front, that DOT and the CRTPA could then evaluate that more on a intersection by intersection basis. And I'm going to walk you through some of the costs here in a minute. I'll do it right now. Each intersection, you'd be looking at a cost of about $3 to $5 million per intersection versus, again, the $150 million unfunded project. And I think that $150 million number is enough to scare off anybody. So that's, it's going to continue to be an unfunded project until we get creative and come up with something else. The segment, and I know this is a question that the chamber folks asked on Tuesday, and I didn't have the answer for them, but we've now got the answer. The question was, how much will the segment cost between those two intersections? It's about a 2-mile section. The cost of that would be between $7.5 and $10 million using the design cross-section that we showed you. And that does not include right-of-way acquisition and some of the landscaping. So some of the additional landscaping would be beyond that. So what you're looking at is a couple of $5 million intersections, and you're looking at a section of roadway that would cost approximately $10 million, not including right-of-way. And so you're looking at a $20 million number for the downtown area. Those intersections, we did some traffic analysis looking at those intersections. We believe that the added capacity at those intersections would significantly reduce the delay that you have right now and would probably provide the capacity that you'd need for 10 to 15 years of fairly consistent growth with what we had about 2 years ago. And so it would add a lot of capacity to the downtown area and frankly would improve the look of the area and the feel of the downtown area. It's going to require some work though, and it's going to require some coordination, working with DOT and working with the CRTPA. Another advantage of all this is that it's possible that depending on how stormwater is provided, and typically DOT is going to be looking to acquire properties for, and I understand that they may have already acquired some property for stormwater, but it might also even allow the downtown to tie into those stormwater facilities to do some kind of central stormwater system. Again, this is what it looks like today. That's what it could look like, and this is just kind of plopped down with existing land uses. And as land uses change over time, the land development code would dictate how those future land uses are actually developed on the ground. Moving on, and I'm going to come back to the 319 thing in a minute.
Could I ask one question?
Mm-hmm.
Those intersection improvements that you were talking about, right here at the courthouse, that would be 4 lanes each way?
That's correct.
And there's enough room for that?
There is not enough room there. That is something that would have to be dealt with in terms of right-of-way.
Okay.
Yeah. And in some cases, depending on the cross-street demands, you may be able to get away with 2 lanes on the cross streets. And that might be your choice, but I would suggest that Wakulla Aaron Road, that probably wouldn't be the case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Does your $3 to $5 million estimate for the intersection include the price for the property?
No, it does not.
That's just for the actual improvement?
That's for the construction. Mm-hmm.
So we would anticipate it being a few $1 million over that.
I really don't have an answer for you on that. I don't know what the right-of-way situation is. I know that DOT was in the process of acquiring right-of-way, but I think it was primarily east and west. So I don't have an answer for you on that.
That typical section was 100 feet, but
100 to 120.
fancy one? Huh?
100 to 100.
Yeah, it's about 100 to 120 feet, depending on median and that type of thing. Additional recommendations was looking at pedestrian facilities in the downtown Crawfordville area. We went pretty much street by street based on land uses, activity centers, where residential areas were, and that type of thing. And we've got pretty much a long list of areas where sidewalks could be provided. In some cases, you might want to do one side of the road or the other or both, depending on the situation. Typically, the way I've seen these projects funded is you come up with the list of projects, which we've now done, and then through a set-aside, through your CRTPA, you can establish a pot of money that can be used for construction on an annual basis. It's typically called what they call a set-aside. I know we did a plan like this back in 2006 in Marion County, and they actually came up, the MPO there actually came up with a set-aside of about $750,000 per year that was used for sidewalk implementation. And those funds come through a federal source. They're called XU dollars. And if you don't have a plan, you don't get the money, and now you have a plan, so hopefully you all can get the money. And establishing those sidewalk projects within the CRTPA's purview. We also looked at kind of how Crawfordville fits into the bigger area. And one of the things we kept hearing over and over again is Wakulla County is a hotbed for ecotourism, and we want to capitalize on that, and we want to do everything we can to encourage that. Well, we agree with that, and one of the things that we kind of observed is to be that center for ecotourism, you kind of have to have the place where everybody kind of lands at night, or that's where they stay for the second day of their ecotourism trip, and that kind of thing. So you need to look at the hotel situation. You need to look at having a theater. You need to have all those kind of supportive activities in your downtown area. But we also looked at some of these additional recreational opportunities, and frankly, we think that Wakulla County has an excellent opportunity to look at multi-use trail connections, since you already have some funded projects, you already have some completed projects here. The trail, this is actually a DEP map, but this corridor right here, actually some of this has actually already been constructed in Leon County. This is the Gopher, Frog, and Alligator Trail that's proposed from Tallahassee all the way down to, I believe, Carabel. And what you've got here is this corridor, as it's constructed, is literally, I believe it's 2 miles, but we put 2.5 miles from Crawfordville. And likewise, Crawfordville is only 9.5 miles from the St. Mark's Trail. And this trail has been constructed. You've got the Ocklackney Bay Trail down here. As the Sea Loop Trail is developed, tying into that for Crawfordville would be really key. And so we've identified a couple of corridors in the plan to capitalize on that. The other kind of key thing here was looking at this alternative route option within Crawfordville. It's kind of loosely defined right now, but one of the obstacles in this is actually the Cager-Posey alignment situation here. We actually come in and it's actually a jog to the right, jog to the left. What we would propose is possibly changing the alignment of that to make it more of a free-flowing corridor and tying that right back into the south end of Crawfordville. The other option that we threw out there is possibly creating a neighborhood serving commercial area in this general area, but just to kind of recognize that corridor and make it easier for folks to use. I'm going to kind of wrap this up by talking about some of the different funding options for how you're going to actually get this done. A lot of the recommendations, frankly, are paper exercises. So, and I don't want to make it sound like there's no cost associated with these. There is from a staff level, but one of the next projects that you'll be doing is actually updating your land development code. It's in need of update. It's highly antiquated for this area. And then looking at changing the comprehensive plan, And frankly, I've been kind of viewing what 163 is going to look like when the legislature is done with it this session. And I think comp plans are going to become, if it carries forward, comp plans are going to become more of an advisory document than a requirement. So I think we'll need to keep our eye on how the legislature goes with that. But look at updating the comprehensive plan to add some land use categories that are more supportive for economic development in Crawfordville. There's a ton of grants. Now that you've got your plan, you can use this plan to apply for these grants, and frankly, that was one of the reasons why we added a little section about the Our Town area, is that's going to score you all on some good points with that grantor. We'll have a long list of grant sources in the document. A lot of these are real competitive. Some of them aren't real competitive, frankly, and a lot of them, go without a lot of requests. Something like Safe Routes to Schools, for example, might be one that's, a little lower lying fruit. Look at leveraging incentives, building incentives into the code so that if folks do this, they get this, but you're not taking any property rights away from them. Allow them to do what they can do today, but if they do this type of landscaping, additional landscaping, we're going to give you a 1-unit bump on your site plan. And that type of leverage is worked really well in a lot of places. Leverage public-private partnerships. Understand who the big property owners are in your area. Go talk to them. See what they need. And I think that a lot of times really good deals can be worked out that way to provide infrastructure, right-of-way, a lot of things like that. The Community Redevelopment Agency is an option. I'll talk about that in a minute and kind of describe what that is, but that's a CRA, which is basically a way to manipulate the taxing structure a little bit to benefit a certain area, and they're temporary. Looking at discretionary sales surtax, looking at local option fuel taxes. These are options that you have at your disposal to use to fund big initiatives like this. And the only thing that I would suggest on those is, like any of these other funding sources, they would certainly not be intended to fund a whole project. The best way that those funds could be used would be to say that we collect $3 million from this particular tax option, take that $3 million, go visit with DOT and say, this is the section that we want to do. We want to do it immediately. We have $3 million that we would like to contribute to this project. How do we move this forward? And I'll tell you this, that DOT is cash-strapped just like every agency in the state. But one of the things that they are mandated to do is spread their dollars out as wide as they can. And so if there's a project where either a developer, a private entity, or a local government can bring something to the table, you're going to get a lot farther with getting your project moved into the DOT work program. I can't emphasize that one enough. So all of these options, the grants are great for smaller projects. When we start talking about big projects on the magnitude of 319, you're going to have to reach into some of these options and utilize some of these options if you want to get that project done. Talk a little bit about the CRA. Basically what a CRA is, again, CRAs are not found in Florida statute, but the underpinning authorization for these is found in case law. They're really common in Florida, and they're really common in California and a few other places. They're not widely used in a lot of different places for a lot of different reasons. But basically, it's not a taxing authority. It basically, and it doesn't set millage rates or have any impact on millage rates at all. But what it does is it looks at an area, and what you do is you basically look at the tax value of that area. You would freeze that tax value and say that any additional tax value that's added to this area, we're going to take that difference in ad valorem taxes and then we're going to take a percentage of that additional ad valorem tax, and that will go directly into the CRA budget, and that CRA budget is used to leverage projects. We work with a lot of CRAs across the state. There are some that work amazingly well. There are some that you hear horror stories about, and there are bad stories out there, but I would say that if they're well managed and well run, they work very efficiently. I don't know if anybody's ever been to downtown Kissimmee, but all of those streets downtown, all of them have all been done using CRA dollars. And they don't fund all the projects, like I said. What they're doing typically is they're working with this entity or that entity to spread those dollars out. This is just a graph of how it works, and basically what you would do is you would look at your taxable value for downtown Crawfordville today, and then you would say, as we develop and as that taxable value increases, this additional area right in here, those tax funds would then be fed into the CRA, and those tax dollars can only be used to benefit that specific area. So it can't be used for operating costs or anything like that. It has to be capital intensive projects. Local option fuel tax is another option. I think that these funds can be used to build capital projects as long as they're in your plan. For the construction of new roads. And again, you could levy that possibly and then use those funds to go to DOT and partner with them to get projects done. All right, I like to kind of just sum it up here. I stopped short of saying getting her done, but getting US 319 done, we kind of see it kind of boils down to this. Basically Wakulla County is going to have to figure out a way to fund a portion of the project. We've got the plan now. You've done the public involvement. That's going to be a very strong factor, but look at turning over every rock, looking at funding options. You eventually will have concurrency mitigation if you decide to continue with your concurrency system the way you have it now. You could look at a CRA, you could look at taxing options. You're going to have to look at those options. Again, partner with DOT and the CRTPA. Bring this plan to them, make it known to them what your desire is. The CRTPA, frankly, they're always looking for projects to do. And the key to getting Crawfordville done is to get a portion of that project, even the smallest part of it, into the work program, even if it's one intersection. Now, our experience has been that once you can get to that point, the project will continue on and they'll want to continue with that project. Use a phased intersection approach. Again, that's pretty much what I just said. And just coordinate with DOT as it relates to the other sections of the road. Next steps, obviously implement this, work with your partners, update the land development code and amend the comprehensive plan. Those are kind of the key pieces to it. A lot of the other minor recommendations that I had in the plan, those will all be documented in here. And one thing that I would even throw out is, I think one thing that's real beneficial when we do a plan like this is to maybe even hold yourselves accountable and maybe even put an agenda item on a future meeting a year from today and come back and revisit this and kind of see where you're at. It's always really helpful to kind of remind ourselves what we set out to do and where we're at. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. And I know that there's a bunch of folks here that actually participated in the process getting here, so I'll be glad to answer any questions.
It's that old story, the devil's in the details.
That's right.
Basically what you've shown here is, what I see is, okay, it's just when you get out into the details.
I think it's great.
Well, I think it's great.
Me too.
I think we, down south of town, I know people don't want to hear this, but in 15, 20 years, you're going to have 75,000 people here. And south of town is a great place to put government offices. Just, you got your courthouse, you've got your historic building, and at some point in time, you bring a plan on how government, because government has no competition. So if you want a water permit, it's not that you have a choice of where you go. You got to come. So you can direct people. But it would seem to me that south of town is a great place. On the west side, there's land available. You could a great place for them.
Okay.
Any citizens? Questions? Yes, sir. Come up.
Does Wakulla County have a CRA in place now?
We have one that's in the city of St. Mark's, but that's it. It's not Wakulla.
Okay, right now is, pardon?
I think Panacea has one, doesn't it?
I don't think so. If it does, I don't know about it, but it could have.
The way the CRA works is you take the taxable value and then any improvements that are done in the CRA increase the assessed value, and that assessed value is used to fund the improvements within the CRA. Now, there's two good things going for Wakulla County. Number one, you don't have a municipality in Crawfordville, so you don't have the bickering between a municipality and a county as far as the distribution of the funds goes, so that's a good thing. Another good thing is the economy's low now, values are low now, so if you initiate a CRA shortly, you could ride that wave of appreciation that's going to occur in the next 15, 20 years. Now, if you start making a lot of changes in your comp plan and your zoning, and you increase your values, then when you initiate a CRA, your baseline is going to be a little higher when you go in. So I would suggest if you plan on doing a CRA, that be first on your agenda to get done while values are low and before your CRA creates value. That'd be my suggestion.
I find it kind of analogous, I guess, to the stock market. While we're talking about a CRA, if we'd have done a CRA 5 years ago, the values have gone consistently down, so it would generate zero revenue, right?
That's correct.
Because the property values have gone down. Basically, if we did one, just like he was saying, while the market's low, now I don't know how that works into the overall budget, of course, because we're designing our budget for worst case, which we're going to talk about not worst case, but for lower values. Therefore, when property values will go back up at some point, and we may want that additional revenue to operate, to give our employees raises, to pay for health care. But on my understanding, it would be stipulated you could only use it for that CRA in that area. Now, you'd have the rest of the counties increase, of course, coastal areas primarily to offset it, but that would be my question. If they did raise, which they will, whether we did anything or not, they go up. It's kind of hard to tie it to we did this improvement, therefore your property value went up. No, it went up because it was crap before.
I don't know if I heard you right or not, but I just want to make it clear the CRA dollars can only be used for the capital projects that are identified in the redevelopment plan within your CRA, and frankly, this plan right here could suffice as your redevelopment plan. Literally, you could put a different cover on it. With some other, you'd have to do a couple of other things. You have to do a blight study and that type of thing, and you'd have to do, but generally speaking, it's for infrastructure. And just like the gentleman said, that infrastructure, it's basically like a hurricane. It's a good analogy because the more money you pump into it, the stronger it gets, and the more money you get out of it, and then the more money you can pump into it. So that's how generally they work.
Gary, I'll say one more thing. I kind of like the idea because, back to my Smith Creek analogy, people in Smith Creek aren't paying for improvements to Crawfordville. People that, everybody's going to enjoy the improvements getting back and forth to work easily, but the people that are going to enjoy them the most are the ones that are paying for them. I like that concept. I'll look into it some more, of course.
On the CRA, if you had a base of 100 and the digest went up to 200, does all of that have to go, or could you just say, well, then 1/2 of any increase?
I think you said a percentage of it.
So you can use a percentage of the growth.
You could do 10%, I guess.
Typically, what you would do is you would subtract out schools and law enforcement from that millage.
From the growth.
From that, yeah, and then it would be the remaining minus, typically it's minus an administrative percentage, which is usually a low percentage of
But you can still do it however you wish, as long as all the money you collect for the CRA goes to the project.
Yeah, and the other thing that you can do too is you can limit the geographic area so that the focus is even more intense.
Is this possible to bond this? I assume
Yes.
because it's variable.
And that's one of the great benefits of CRAs is because you've got a documented revenue stream, you can actually bond large projects.
What about the people that bonded 3 years ago and the property values went down? What do they do?
Well, there's some folks that have had their CRA budgets drastically reduced. But for the most part, if you look at when a lot of them were established, it's kind of like if you bought a house in 2000, you're feeling it, but you're not hurting. The guy that's hurting is the guy that bought the house in 2007. So generally they're probably okay, but the budgets were reduced.
Bonding it is, unless I'm horribly mistaken, is borrowing money.
That's right.
Still have the payment every year.
Well, typically you're not using all of your budget to pay the bond. It's a portion of it. It's kind of like a car payment.
I got you.
Just about the CRA, that would be for the entire planning district, not just for the core area.
That would be something that you all would have to decide. Typically if you have a city, it's not the whole city. It's usually some area specific, and the way that you get to being established is you have to complete what's called, and it doesn't sound pretty, but it's called a blight study. And the blight study points out, and there are different ways you get to what blight is. Blight can be the way a place looks. It can be the socioeconomic situation. It can be a transportation blight, which is, frankly, y'all would qualify for that through congestion. So basically, the CRA area is typically wrapped around the area that you're trying to address.
Can you pay for the CRA, say the bonding, the cost of the bonding and the interest in our payment, can we pay for that out of the CRA?
Yes, that's the way that typically works.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you could do this without ever getting into general revenue or any other part of our
That's the
budget.
whole point of it. You never touch your general revenue.
Unless the scenario happens that Randy just said, if
Yes.
the bottom falls out, then we're stuck with the
It's
payment.
not free money, for sure.
No.
Well, if we get this money, we got to offset it, not necessarily, we're at the bottom, hopefully, and, hopefully our money will keep increasing, and we're going to take a portion of that increase. But luckily, it's only the people that are benefiting.
And you are not allowed to use CRA dollars in your general revenue. Those have to be completely separate.
It would seem like a very winnable position, because we may have the bottom may go a little lower, but it's gonna have a little trouble going a long way lower. And if we put something like this in fairly soon, then we get all the upside, and it costs the citizens nothing.
That's right.
And it benefits because Ms. Arts, of course, is very much for town beauty, and of course all the rest of us. But things like that benefit. A nice-looking Walmart would benefit Walmart more than a bad-looking Walmart.
Gotcha.
Because it's a pleasure to do that.
I think that's Publix. It's a pleasure to shop. I just wanted to quick touch on, I didn't hear you talk about, and I stepped away for a few minutes, the interconnectivity of these side roads. Did you go?
That's what we talked about later.
Is it? Okay, perfect.
No,
Well, just one of the things I still want to see, and we've talked about it, is just try to do what we can to expand the roads alongside Crawford Highway and connect them so that we can take some of the local traffic off of 319. I sincerely believe that's going to be the easiest and best way to reduce traffic, because it'll be cheaper to, extend Trice Lane than it is to widen 319, just for different reasons.
We did talk about realigning Cager Posey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I was here for that part, which I think is important.
Yeah.
I agree with the realigning of Cager Posey. I think looking at the power line roads, which exist also, which could work to connect Wakulla AM Road up to Ivan, and looking at extending. If you anyone can look at the maps. If you look at our maps, there's lots of. You can extend Trice Lane basically up to Ivan also.
The other, I think, similar to that, one thing that we have in the plan, and I didn't really go into it tonight, is there was a lot of public comment about, well, we've got this north-south thing going on, but what makes it downtown is the Four Corners intersection, Main Street and something else. And so we were actually looking at that, and Wakulla Aaron Road and MLK Road both could actually operate as that crossing town center road. And so what we would propose is either in a 2-lane configuration or possibly even a 4-lane configuration, creating those side streets to create sort of a Four Corners in those two locations, because that would be the north town center and the south town center.
Well, and just moving towards some sort of grid so that it's possible for people who don't want to deal with the traffic on Crawford Highway to be able to get around locally. Right now, it's almost like we have roads that almost get you where you want to go, but you still have to get on Crawford Highway.
I got thinking about that grid after Ms. Art's Sustainable Communities. Hudson Heights, to me, looks like a grid. Around Azalea Park, it's there. It's close to downtown, but we have to have the political will to allow development in it. I mean, the road system's there, but right now everybody thinks it's a residential area. Well, if it's sidewalks, whatever, there and made it, you know what I'm saying? It's there instead of us trying to make it.
Although I think some of the plans called for expanding some of our parks further to the west of what we have now. Was that something I saw?
There's a couple of.
Please continue to speak into the mic.
Yes, there's a couple of park areas that we're looking at expanding over towards the retirement center, senior center.
I think mostly you have around Hudson Park there, you have that laid out for commercial, institutional, and so forth, and that's excellent. That's where your lawyers and your doctors are eventually going to go, unless you can do a plan south of the courthouse.
Right, and I think another thing that the public came up with was actually a parade route, and that's in the plan, so through that same area.
And I'll add into I've said it several times over the last couple of years that I think a CRA for our urban core area is really a good idea, and I'm going to continue to stress the importance of the grid, which I'm just hoping made it in there, and talk of. I know we're waiting right now on the Crawford Road study. It's coming from CRTPA, correct?
I don't deserve credit.
Aren't we waiting? Somebody can ring a bell?
Oh, the mobility plan.
The mobility plan. Sorry, I apologize. The mobility plan versus study.
Sector plan, I think.
Sector plan. But that should give us more insight into, traffic patterns and things.
That's kind of a 20-year look, I think, more than what this is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just combining it all together so we can help have this little...
We are coordinating with them.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I think it's great the way you've outlined next steps, implementation and funding options and whatever, but I think I wouldn't just do a yearly update. I like having timelines with, the steps really spelled out, and then maybe even as a board having a quarterly update on how we're moving along with those steps, because this is so important to our county.
Might I propose, possibly when we come back with the plan, based on your input here, that we could craft those steps in that discussion, and maybe we can come to you with something in draft form, and you can react to that.
That sounds great.
Okay.
John Shuff, you had some comments?
Yeah, like Lynn's comment, more is better. We really need to get on this. We've been waiting on the state for 15 years. I saw John's first presentation, or by the planners in black and white, and then I saw it in color, and now we're seeing it on video. It's always, it's the same thing. We haven't done anything, and the chamber's been kicking it around here lately, and we've been coming to the same conclusion. We just need something. We just need to do ourselves somehow or other. We just got to thinking about it, and one idea that we had was there's a plan going on in Tallahassee that's been very, very effective. It's right now they're widening the Mahan corridor out to I-10. It's called Blueprint 2000. They just finished Capitol Circle Southeast. Every one of these projects are in excess of $100 million. We're way, way, way smaller than that, but we don't have near the size project that they're doing up there. Blairstone Road was one of their projects. Gorgeous project. Tallahassee, we talked a little while ago about Crawfordville. You get someplace and you stop and you can't get anyplace else. Tallahassee was like that when I started school up there. It's not like that anymore. Blueprint 2000 is rebuilding Tallahassee and in a good way. At Cascade Park, they're just beginning Cascade Park, another $100 million project. They're funding it all off of the penny sales tax. Again, their base is a lot bigger than ours. But ours can grow, as we start doing things and implementing things. It seems like the beauty of that plan is they put together a plan. I've read some about it. I would like to see us have a workshop and have somebody from Blueprint come down and just explain to us what they did. But they set up an authority, and I thought it was a very unique solution to long-term planning. So you're not, every time, don't sound this derogatory, but every time you change commissioners out, just change the plan. This is a big thing, and it needs to be a long-term plan, and it needs to be set up to where it just starts working on its own. It seems like, I may not have all the details right, but they set up a technical review committee and a citizens committee. And people involved from government, so that there's oversight in the government, and took in all the environmental aspects, the planning aspects, the pretty comprehensive plan. They put it before the voters, asked for a 15-year extension on their sales tax, which is what I'm recommending with this plan. It set up an authority, gave them the power and the authority to buy and sell property. Gave them the power to write bonds and sell them. Gave them the power to implement eminent domain when they needed to, sign contracts with builders, and still, every couple of times a year, Board of County Commissioners in this case, or up there, a combination of city commissioners and county commissioners get together and have oversight over them. But the plan was set up, and they don't change the plan. And that's the only way you're ever going to get to where we're talking about wanting to get here, is to set up some apolitical group that's going to implement this plan. And I just encourage us to start, again, we've seen all these plans. The big thing to me is implementation, and this seems like a way to possibly get us there. The CRA and TIF's planning, that's excellent. I asked John Sewell when he came to the chamber the other day and gave us the excellent presentation that he gave us, if we could combine the two together or do them in conjunction. And he said that he felt like that we could. Talked with Alan earlier today, and we talked about some of the penny sales taxes. It's kind of interesting. Number 6 goes someplace, number 9 goes someplace, but it just, to me, it seems like we've been taking our penny sales tax money and paving just kind of hither and yon all over the county. Different folks have different opinions about whether or not it's been money well spent or not, but any good general will tell you if you're going to win a war, you got to concentrate your forces. And I think we need to concentrate our forces and work on 319.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Just one last comment. So we're still, before, let's say we're interested in a CRA, because I heard more support tonight than I have in the past. Do we need to, do we need to wait until this study is officially finished that you're putting together for us, or the plan, or could we start discussing and figuring out the blight study? If that's the next step we have to do, what happens? Because that's something, it's going to be expensive. I have no idea. I just know it's going to be expensive.
Everything.
Well, I think to answer your question, no, you wouldn't have to wait for this to be completed. You could start tomorrow. The basic steps for creating a CRA is you basically have to do the blight study. And then once the blight study, and the way the blight study works is that the local government elected officials have the authority to agree or disagree that yes, this is a blighted area for these reasons. And then once you've determined that you have a blight situation, then what you would do is you would create what's called a CRA redevelopment plan. And my suggestion on that would be to take this plan, and you probably would want to roll it out and hold some type of public meeting for the purpose of creating the CRA. In other words, you wouldn't want to just take this and put a different cover on it, even though you could. You'd probably want to roll it out in light of the CRA to the public. Once you've done that, you've got your plan and you've got your blight study, then it becomes a situation where you'll need to get an attorney who's versed in all things CRA. That attorney would then set up all of the legal, there's an ordinance that you'd have to do, and I'm not that familiar with it. There are people that specialize in that. I think your attorney probably would have the ability to probably do that. That's it's a relatively quick process. I would say from beginning to end, the fact that you've got the plan, you're probably looking at, you could probably get everything done in just 4 to 6 months, something like that.
Well, and thanks. And what I'd just like to see is if staff might be able to start bringing back something so we can talk about it at an actual meeting.
I would also like to say your thought of taking it piece by piece, getting started. It's not taking a shotgun approach and saying we got to do it all at one time. But I agree with you totally that you focus on a part by part by part by part. But the bottom line is that we will never get started until we get started, until we take a step and move that. Working with John and his thoughts on this, there seems to be a separation between the county and the Chamber of Commerce, and that's not what I feel is a good thing. The county and the Chamber of Commerce, we're all working for the benefit of the citizens and for the county, and we should work together as closely as we could, and we should investigate moving John and your project and moving them together, because we're all working. The chamber is a commercial entity in a certain extent. They like good development. They like to bring businesses that pay taxes and create communities, and we should encourage that as a board and have the chamber possibly work with these people to affect this. And we still have the oversight of it. But they have maybe so much more time than we have to do something like that.
I'm kind of with Alan. I'd like to see some sort of actionable item come before us, and let's just do something.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Vote to not do it, or do it and
I totally
do
agree
something.
with you.
We've been talking about it for about 10 years.
I totally agree with you.
I was just going to say, I think that we've already taken the step to take the first step, which is we've now got a meeting scheduled for next week where Commissioner Merritt, because of his role on the CRTPA board, we've scheduled a meeting with the CRTPA, I think for Thursday of next week, if I'm not mistaken. That's the first step, and that's a great first step. So I think that's where that's the direction you all need to head.
Okay. Sure, John. It's gone a lot longer than I expected us to, but go ahead.
I just wanted to, one thing I left off, just to be clear, all of this stuff that I just talked about, blueprint, it was all bondable. By going out 15 years, you get a really long bond line, makes it a lot more easier to do. and that all of it was leveraged with Capital Circle Southeast was a stimulus money. They got about 50/50 on building that section. Capital Circle Northwest was an airport connectivity federal grant that they put about 50 cents in, and the federal government put 50 cents in to make that happen. And now I'm going to agree with Jerry. We would love to work with y'all. Most of the citizens in this room right now are chamber members. We're here and we're ready to go to work. And I think that's how Blueprint got started, by the planners and the citizens getting together and working on it.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, we'll end that workshop, and we'll take 5 minutes exactly and come back and start the budget workshop. Number 2 workshop.
Are we starting up here?
Second workshop is regarding the development of the 11-12 budget and presentation of alternative revenue options. So first of 4 workshops, and Barden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. It's hard to believe we're back at this time of the year. Starting to talk about next year's budget already.
It's like Christmas. Every year.
Absolutely. It's always a gift that keeps giving. I'm going to walk you through the item. I have just a tiny PowerPoint. It kind of just coincides and highlights some key points in the agenda item, but it's really not a full-blown PowerPoint. I didn't want to take the time to go through a whole PowerPoint for you, so I'm just going to dive right into the item. As the Chairman said, this is the first workshop of the budget season. We're going to have 4 more after this as we go through the process leading up to final approval of the budget in September. But I just want to get, basically this item is really, or this workshop is to get some, start the building blocks of the budget for next year. Give us some direction moving forward, knowing that things will probably change between now and either July 15th when we have to get the budget to you, or September when the budget's approved. But we just want to get some direction from the board early on as to their expectations of what the budget should shape up to be for the next coming year. We had our budget kickoff meeting March 3rd, invited the constitutionals and all staff members and gave them the directions moving forward, handed out the budget manual, the budget forms for the requests. At that meeting, the property appraiser was here. He's here tonight. Kind of gave us an early estimate on what he thinks the property values are going to do for next year. Unfortunately, a little crestfallen at the meeting, but they're looking at probably another 10% reduction in our current property values, which unfortunately is devastating to a budget the size of ours. When you're talking 10%, a mill generates a little over $1 million. So when you're talking 10% of a $10 million budget, you're talking $1 million reduction that we're looking at if the property values are as estimated. So let me just walk you through the item a little bit. This is really going to focus on 4 areas, kind of the budget directives that we've kind of been going through, initiatives for board consideration, some alternative revenue options we'd like you to consider, and basically the rollback calculation and where we are with that. So we'll just start with the budget directives. Pretty much all departments know that we're not approving any new services and new programs unless they're grant funded and there is no match required from the general fund or any other funding source. I've asked all departments to come back with a 5% decrease in their budget. If we're talking about $1 million decrease as anticipated, that kind of falls in line with getting there.
Tim, let me ask you a second. You're talking about the county budget, not the constitutional budget.
Everybody.
Everybody. So what you're talking about is everybody that...
Yes,
okay.
because
Okay.
they all draw from the general fund, so we're looking at everybody
Good
with about
enough.
5% decrease.
Now, let me ask you this real quick. I don't want to keep interrupting you, but
No.
5% of Donnie's budget is a lot different than 5% of the sheriff's budget. Did you just say everybody cuts 5% across the board?
Correct.
The thing is, last year we did that and that didn't happen.
I understand.
So,
I understand.
okay.
Yes, it's and it's same with us. I mean, 5% to to the veterans guys, a big difference than 5% to, say, EMS.
Right.
You know, because 5% to him is probably his salary. So, because that's really the only one person in that organization. So we have to kind of work around those intangibles, and hopefully somebody else can absorb more of a cut than he can. Just to continue on, obviously we're not going to include any cost of living increase again this year for county employees. We're going to try to keep focusing on our lobbying efforts to try to keep what we have and hopefully not lose any more with source funding and costing shifts, for the state putting more burdens on us through mandates. So I know Jennifer's been tracking legislation that directly affects us, and we'll call upon you and anybody else that can help us persuade our legislatures not to put any more hurt on counties. Also, you know, continuing efforts to establish MSBU's for road paving and stormwater initiatives. Any projects that want to be done, they could be self-funded through self-assessments on neighborhoods and you know.
Yeah, does any of that money come out of the general revenue, though? Road projects, they're paid for once in sales tax, right?
Correct.
And gas
Correct.
tax.
Impact fees or whatever.
Yes.
So it doesn't really affect the millage.
Or MSBU's, because the board has given direction to establish those, so that's where they'd all come out of, yes. Obviously, continue to expand our grants areas for capital projects countywide, eliminate relying on reserves, tying emergency funds to budgeted emergency reserves, and continued attrition across the county wherever we can. When positions become available, look to eliminate them as much as we can.
I'd like to not only eliminate relying on the reserve, but I think we need to build the reserve back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And would it be safe to say that if we say we got to cut $1 million, is the same as saying everybody cuts 5%? Is that basically
Pretty much.
the same thing?
That's kind of where I'm coming up with 5%.
How can you build a reserve when you don't have any money? How
You
can
charge more, cut more.
You quit spending.
Well, I do understand that, yeah, I understand that. So when you're talking about if you don't have any money, it's hard to go over here and find some money.
That's what we're here
That's
for.
what we're saying, that's what he's trying to do.
Okay.
If we can do this right here, which is gonna be hard to do, but if we did, then we'd save $1 million and we stop spending, which I think he's gonna talk about later, then we can start have some cash at the end of the year to put in reserves. So,
Yeah, we didn't get here in a day, we're not going to get out of it in a day. And I'm going to have an agenda item on the 21st that's talking about cuts and budget reductions for this year that'll hopefully translate over until next year. Well, they'll have to translate over until next year. So we're looking at more than just a 5% decrease
Kim, I don't know
in
if
the
I'm-
total budget starting next year.
Jumping too far ahead, but on this public service tax you had, was that part of your presentation? I don't want to jump
Yes.
too far ahead.
Yes.
All right, I'll just wait then.
Yeah. We'll talk about that too.
Before we leave that, I just want to, I personally feel a little uncomfortable with this zero match requirement. You know, I think makes sense as a kind of a guideline. But when you're bringing in money, if you have to pledge a little bit, even just to apply to see if you can get it, and then if you do get it, to have a little bit of expenditure to have a really big return on investment, I just think it makes sense. At least do it on a case-by-case basis.
I agree. I mean, we don't want to not get
I
a
agree with
$30,000 grant because we didn't want to pay
It all depends on
$1,000.
how much.
Oh, and absolutely. I mean, all those things would be it's just an overall kind of
I got you.
direct. Don't be looking for programs that we can't afford, or look for programs that are grant supported or partially grant supported, but
We don't want to accept
Try
a
to
$1 million
minimize-
grant with a 50% match, basically.
absolutely, absolutely.
Another part of that is accepting grants that cost us in out years. They pay for themselves the first 2 years, and then the out years after that, we got to assume all the responsibility for it, and that's bad. I think that's more what he's trying to talk about. I agree with you, Lynn. Absolutely, if we got to, even if it's a 50-50, it's sometimes it's worth it. But
Well, as long as we,
looking at things that got to be paid for 2 or 3 years down the road, all the funding goes away, and the county gets stuck with it. Those kind we got to be leery of.
I don't mind as long as we look at each one of them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to not present anything to you, and then you always have the option to change your mind or the direction. So it's just kind of a overall kind of goal.
When's the last time county employees got a cost of living increase?
I think it was year
2
before
years
last.
ago.
Yeah, the year before last,
1%?
1% the first
One
year.
and a
I think it
half.
was 1.8.
Mike? this may not be a popular
I'm sorry,
position.
1.18, you're right.
If we can somehow fit in a cost of living increase, or what the,
You're lucky to have a job.
No, I ain't gonna.
I just got elected. I don't know what the CPI,
I've got 4 years.
I don't know what the CPI has been doing the last couple of years.
It ain't going up.
If the CPI is flat, then the cost of living increase should be flat. You know, I don't know what CPI has been doing the last couple of years.
Commissioners, we got some alternative revenue options here. We could tie a cost of living to it if you,
Or health insurance, I mean,
I'm
these are a
kidding,
big
no.
issue for the employees. I mean, they really are. And
I think,
I know they're good, it's good they got a job, I understand that.
I think we let Tim go ahead and then we come back and pick it apart or talk about it.
We're just going by our list.
I'm hoping it's going to be clear. You just don't have any questions, but,
I'm sure it will be.
okay, some initiatives for consideration as we move forward. As we know, we need to cut costs. We need, when we're talking property tax revenues, we need to look at where we're spending money that we could possibly reduce. And we presented these options before. There's nothing too outrageous in some of these considerations, but one of them we looked at was the flex plan. As you know, the flex plan is an added benefit that we have outside of our health care. If you elect not to take CHP as your health care provider, if you have outside insurance from someone else, or you just don't want to have health insurance, we offer the flex plan to employees. It equals the amount that you would get if you were getting your portion of the board's health care insurance. Right now, it's up to about $5,300 that we pay annually, or it's available to you annually for Flex Plan. It pays your co-pays, it pays for anything medical that's not covered under your insurance, and there's certain restrictions on it, but it's pretty
I know that in private industry, that's just absolutely not done. I mean, if you don't accept the benefit, you just don't get it.
Well, the problem is that it's been increasing, and it's not a problem. I'm on it. I'm not, I'm the first one to say it needs to be capped because.
So one I'll say, you've got the capital whatever, and then you got the flex plan. Are they the same one as for the person who doesn't have insurance, so the cost is the same to the county?
The county pretty much pays $5,300 for your health insurance annually for a single individual, so you're
flex
allowed to
plan.
utilize $5,300 of the flex plan.
Well, then I can't see you taking one without the other.
I don't think it's
You
fair.
can't just, you can't.
One of the things I think we could talk about doing is, because with the flex plan, that's a reimbursement by us. If they don't use the whole $5,300, like let's say they don't actually use it, we don't spend it all.
Right.
But we budget for it all, one way or the other. One of the things we might be able to do is say, offer them like, if it's $5,000, say we will give you $2,000 bump in your salary, which barely is anything, but to
Then
get
everybody
that.
would turn it up.
Well, then everybody turns their health insurance down, and we've just saved $3,300 per person.
That defeats the whole purpose, though. When they get sick, the purpose of having insurance is to cover their health care costs.
What'd you
not
say?
the deficit. When, PSG, US Filter, Veolia, we offered the comparable benefits. And it's just you do it the way you do it in private industry. If they didn't take them because their wife worked for the state or their husband worked for the state, you don't get an increase in pay. You don't get extra money. It's kind of like sick leave, except you've worked for the county, I guess. It's a benefit. If you use it, it's there. If you don't, it goes away. That's how private industry works. Now, I know with the county, they'll actually reimburse you for sick leave, but that's how it works in private now. Mr. Stewart, I thought this was called a cafe plan or whatever. I think I remember
Cafeteria plan.
you brought it up
Yes.
years ago.
And we got it started then, and then we've incrementally increased it. I take this too, and I don't want to see it cut, but I think a good plan is to cap it at a rate. With the school, the school does the same thing. They offer us insurance or the cafeteria plan, and we get $1,000, and it's been that way 18 years I've been working there. It's $1,000, period. And the insurance is obviously a lot more than that for a family plan. But I think it's appropriate now where we are in the budget to cap this thing, especially if we're going to pass the health insurance cost on, increases on, so this ought to be capped somewhere. I don't know what number that should be, but I think we got to entertain the idea of capping it at some number. And I'll probably take a beating for that, but I think it's the fair thing to do if we're going to pass the other health care cost on to all the other folks.
Just for out of curiosity, would the two offset? If we cap the cafe plan, say at $3,000 or whatever, would the cost savings from that offset the CHP increases I know that doesn't save anything, but I'm just saying, would they theoretically offset each
Apply
other?
it to that. I'd have to look at that. I haven't.
I go back to that same old premise, that there's 40% of our builders that don't have a job today. These people don't have a job. They're having to pay their own insurance. The people who have a job are just really, really fortunate to have a job. So I really don't want to expand anything. A capping of it's fine with me. In today's market, if you've got a job, you're a lucky person. And I think my deal is count your blessings. You've got a job. In some of our, I don't know, I'll get into this. Some of our applications for administrator, people will say, I don't have a job, but I want $116,000 for this job with you. Now, what kind of reasoning is that? You don't have a job, but yet you want $125,000 in your next.
My position may not be quite as, I don't know what the best way, firm, I guess, is yours on it. Just because I've managed 30-something people that, these people don't, I'm not so big deal. Employees are not high-paid individuals. The rank and file employees are not high, they're not a Tim, forgive me, they're not a Mr. Barden, you know, they make $10, $12 something an hour, and they're taking home a few $100s, you know, every 2 weeks. So they're not, I understand what you're saying, but I think we need to try to keep things in perspective on that these are not high-paid individuals in most cases.
But I
know they have a job.
They choose to do what they do. And this health benefit, when you take the after-tax, it takes in private enterprise, I was paying like $1,500 a month for insurance. It took me $20,000 of income to pay for that $1,200 of health service. So you take this average salary you're talking about and you throw health service on that, you're no longer average anymore. You have a good income, and you have your health and your family and your children and everything covered. So
I agree.
I think
I paid it out of my own pocket.
it's not the people choose to work with the county, and they do a great job. They get paid reasonably for. You always have the opportunity to go somewhere else.
And many people have.
But your health insurance is an extremely expensive thing. It's after-tax dollars that you pay it with.
Yeah.
But most people, well, I don't say most, but many work just for insurance. You ask the people who work for us, and most work for the insurance.
Yeah.
I've been a proponent, like you're suggesting, Randy, every year I've sat up here, is that we suck up the increase in the insurance cost. And I've said that every year. I can't say that anymore because I know where we are financially. So I think we ought to cap the flex plan at some number, either what it is now or something less, and we can't afford to pay the increases in health insurance anymore. That's the way it is. I know that equates to a cut in their pay. I understand that, but at least they have insurance. And I hate that. So
I was going to say, and I don't see the notes in here, and I read over it briefly earlier today. I know last year Debbie proposed other plans that were slightly. Yeah,
Just fixing to say that.
their plans with higher copays, where our cost will go down, and we can help balance this out. And I would lean towards that one, even though it still ends up being a higher cost for the individual.
I agree with you.
But most of the copays, almost all of them, were the same, and our cost went down. Would you want to speak in the mic, Debbie? Thank you for the video camera.
I do expect that CHP will come forward with a second option again this year. Last year, the option was no increase in premium to the county, but the employee eventually absorbed that increase in the way of co-pays and hospital admissions.
and that's a better option, because if they choose not to go to the doctor, or they don't get their healthy family, then they don't they don't have to pay, and that's a much better option.
I got two suggestions. Number one, let me just give you another example. Were you first?
No, go ahead and finish your thought, and then we'll go in.
I paid for insurance out of my own pocket up until recently. I paid $230 a month.
I paid $1,200.
All right, but I didn't get the Cadillac plan. I had major medical. I don't know if there's a way we could offer that to the employees. My daughter sprained her ankle, it's a high deductible, but if I'd have taken Cobra and paid $1,200 a month, I'd have lost a lot of money compared to buying major medical. That's kind of what you're saying. It may be an option that if you get cancer or if you get severely hurt, your insurance will cover. The second thing I'd like to suggest is that we talk to the school board. I know maybe we could form a group, all of us form a much larger group, okay, and then maybe we could get lower premiums.
It's possible. Lynn?
Yeah, actually, that was the idea that was suggested last year, I think, by Donnie, maybe, about pooling with whether school board or are all the constitutional officers with us?
I think so, yes. Even I talked to the sheriff, yeah.
Okay, so it was the school board. Did you ever look into that?
No, we did not.
Okay.
We could save quite a bit of money.
I think we need to look at what are some different plans that with different co-pays, but also look at, is there a way for us to combine with the school board?
Our broker does bring to us proposals from other companies like Blue Cross or the Standard or something along those lines. She does bring those forward. She brought those forward last year also, but they were quite a bit higher with not as much benefits. So
Does the school board have Capital Health?
They do.
Well, I'm not talking about looking at necessarily another plan that's more expensive as much as what options does Capital Health give that would reduce the premiums?
I can certainly look at that.
And if we pool with the school board, is there a way for us all to reduce our cost in some way?
And I just want to reiterate, from the document we got last year, it just came too late. The co-pays were pretty similar with the price change. Like, I think it was, they were like a lot of the standard things were still the same price, and then some of the more expensive things were twice as much. So if you're having a multi-$1,000 operation, you're going to pay a couple $100 versus $100 or something, which hurts. It's more money, but it wasn't something that expensive operations aren't something everyone has every day.
You have to watch about a small group. When you go into a small group, some of your members of that group have a catastrophic insurance companies. They like to take your money and they don't like to pay it out. They will drop you as a group. The fallacy about that is when they drop you as a group, if you have pre-existing conditions, now when you go to your next group, you have a pre-existing condition.
More. Pass the health care law?
You have the health care law, they have to take you with your pre-existing condition, but they can charge you outrageous amounts.
Well, I got one more point, and I kind of looked into this several months ago, is our retirees. My understanding is that they pay their entire premium. Is that correct?
Yes.
Pretty sure they do. Yeah. But my question was, how does that weigh on the group? You understand what I'm saying? I think the group, I don't know if they can look at the health conditions of the individuals in their age or whatever. My question was, if you're on Medicare, you're 75 and you retired from Canada 25 years ago, are they still counted as part of that group to offset Alan's young age and obvious health?
Obvious.
They look at the types of illnesses, whether they've been chronic or serious conditions, and how many. They don't really look at age because of discrimination issues and other things, but they look at the type of illnesses, how many hospitalizations there have been, critical care, home visits. They look at those type of criteria, and that's how they kind of work their proposals. So I can show it to you.
But do you think that's adversely affecting the premiums?
Our Medicare folks are not included.
In other words, what I'm saying doesn't apply. There's no retirees weighing down the...
No, our retirees pay the full premium.
But there's
they do
presence in the group.
Okay,
that's one of my questions.
They do not.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just going to bring up two ideas from last year. One is that maybe we want to get together a group that look at cost containment strategies for, the workforce. And there's a number of them, and I've also talked about smoking. We have high smoking rates, which is going to be high health care costs, and whether you provide incentives for people to quit, or if you adjust their premiums differentially, or there are a whole lot of things we can look at to try to make the workforce healthier and to contain health care costs moving forward. So that's just something else to throw out there.
Life insurance, county pays.
We picked up life insurance last year for the first year. It was a flat $6,000 for all county employees. That included constitutionals.
That's
It
not a
provided a
major
basic
cost.
$20,000 coverage for all employees. Anything over and above the employee paid themselves.
I personally would not want to go away from Capital Health because they are rated as one of the very best health systems in the country.
They are, and
And-
we've had them since 1985.
Yeah, so we just figure out how we can.
Okay, let's move on, let Tim get to the next item here.
Well, we've got a few more workshops before we need to finalize. So we'll get some other proposals. We'll see if we can work with the school board, and we'll bring that back and let you guys make a final determination how you want to go with that. But, and as well as the flex plan. Anyway, okay, moving along. We talked about health insurance. Obviously, I'm going to reiterate, we're going to go zero position growth, and we're going to try to get rid of positions through attrition as much as we can. And we ask the constitutionals and every other organization under our umbrella to consider the same motives. Again, reiterate enhancement enhance our focus on grant opportunities, constantly search for grants that are going to be beneficial to the county and help us cut costs in spending our own funds. When
We cannot account for that in the budget, though, right? We can't budget for grants that we think we may get.
No.
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 Outside of our normal ones. But
It's always grant.
right. This further moves on to some other areas that we need to discuss. The solid waste I put in here, obviously that's something that we're moving forward with, that we're on the path towards implementation of an assessment for
Is
solid
that
waste.
not being operated as an enterprise fund right now? So it gets, how much general revenue?
No, it operates as an enterprise fund, but it operates an enterprise fund in the red.
By how much, roughly?
Depends. Annually, it's pretty much in a hole right now. I think the last we checked, it was $300,000 or $400,000 in the hole
Every year?
every year.
So if we do this 112 assessment, that negative 100,000 or whatever it is should go back into the...
Yes, because they built in some reserves into the funding plan, so hopefully over time, as you spend less, you'll start building it up and putting it back.
But it'll take the drag off the general budget, basically.
Well, I mean, like I said, there's no general fund money going into it.
There's not?
No,
You
not
just
at all.
keep-
We don't do a subsidy to that fund.
Okay, that was my question, I guess.
So if we keep going towards that implementation, then that'll write itself, and that's kind of the recommendation moving forward, is we keep moving towards doing something about the solid waste fund, because it's
Just
been
a-
troubled for quite some time.
Just a general question. Now, you said it's a negative $300,000. How do we carry over that negative $300,000 from year to year then?
It's kind of maintains that, we've cut the
bookkeeping.
expenditures enough that we keep it in
I need to be able to do that.
that hole at that level, but it's been that way for quite some time.
Obviously, it has to pay for its own expenses,
Right.
right? It does do that. Well, it can't,
depends.
it wouldn't be in the negative.
It depends. It depends on how bad a year we have. If we got the compactor breaking down every month, then it's not paying for itself. But other years, the compactor's not. And so we're saving some cash that way. But if it does, if we have a bad year with equipment breaking down, it's not paying for itself. We're charging exorbitant tipping fees.
But it never gets money from the general fund.
Never. Nope. It's not yet. We've got the solid waste grant that help it out, and we've got just what we take in tipping fees and trips to the landfill. So,
Before we leave that, I want to make sure we're not wasting our time. I'm still for the idea of this fee, this MSBU. I hope the rest of the board is Okay with that?
Now, you just jumped ahead to the MSBU. We were talking about
I think
solid
he meant
waste.
solid
He's
waste.
talking
Talking about solid waste MSBU,
Oh, okay.
a solid waste assessment, whatever you want to call it.
It's the same,
Okay.
same terminology, same thing.
Okay,
I'm
solid
still
waste.
for it.
We're in favor of something.
I am.
Okay?
Yeah.
So everybody's okay with that? Lynn?
I supported it before.
Okay, that's all.
I'm
all
kind
that.
of like Ellen, though. But anyway,
We'll find something that works.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, that'll be coming
you
before
only
you.
need 3 votes,
We've
so.
got to find something that works.
Okay.
Right, you just need 3 votes, so you got 3.
I think I put it in here just to remind you that something needs to be done,
Okay.
and whatever that direction is, we just need to think about that for the next budget year, because it's, so we've got USDA funding on the line, we've got some other issues out there, and like I said, it's-
When do we expect that to come to us? Soon? Is that,
Hey, we delayed it to May.
okay. Soon. All right.
The other thing is the fire MSBU. Last year, the board decided to lower, to provide tax relief to citizens. We decided to lower the MSBU for the fire service from $65 to $61. Well, actually, yeah, from $65 to $61. And like I said, with staff putting the agenda item at those public hearings, we could do that. It was something that we could provide for that year because of the cash balance that they've had for quite some time in that fund. But even in this year, we're dipping into that leftover cash because $61 is not going to fund the operation, especially after we put the paid fire guys' salaries and benefits coming out of that fund. So the point is, it's probably not sustainable for the long term at that level. And it's something that the board should consider at some point in the future, raising it back to at least the level that we had it at, if not higher.
Basically, we're running deficit spending then in fire. Basically, we're making up the difference from what we spend and what we take in with the reserve money.
Well, we're not through the year yet, but yeah, it's projecting that way. So we're going to start dipping into that cash.
Alan?
And well, last year we had 10 of our 11 volunteer fire department chiefs come and say that they did not feel that we needed the amount of money that we were requesting, and it'd be preferable if we decide to move forward that we get support from our network of volunteers with increasing the MSBO. Just going to put out where I'm coming from on this.
All right, I also, I think Alan had done a good analysis last year, and when you say, like, moving it from 61 to 65 is bringing it back to what it was, or whatever, that's only true for the residential, and that bumps it up for the commercial, and that it was either 79
We go all the way up
or
to 70, well, I think it was 75, but yeah.
75.
There was a number that didn't increase it for commercial.
Right, so I'd like to look at the full range of numbers there, that it doesn't hurt business anymore to go to 75 on the residential. Anyway, I'm supportive of increasing it, and I'd just like to look at the range.
What I see here is, and I wasn't around at that time, but I see here that we took $420,000 from the MSBU in order to fund county government. Is that right?
Other way around, we took 420 out of the general fund put it in MSBU.
Well,
We shifted the cost from the general fund to the MSBU.
it said the transfer of the costs paid by the firefighters from the general fund. Yeah, that's right. You took money from the general fund and put it into the MSBU.
Cost.
We quit collecting.
Money in the general fund.
Okay, all right, I got you.
All fire is now paid with the MSBU. I agree with Lynn. What I'd like to see us do is a cost analysis of what $5 increments would do. Something simple like that for me would work, and then what it would do to commercial and residential.
My opinion on it, and this is my opinion on a lot of these cost things, we obviously can't do that, but whatever it costs to run it, whatever that number is, as long as it's paid equally by everybody.
I agree.
That's what I look for.
That's a good way to look at it, but if we figure that out and then tell us what $5 increment, what $65 does, what $70 does, what $75 does that meet what Randy suggested is the total cost of fire?
We might want to provide the study to Jerry and Randy from last year that talked about what the amount of money was and how much, because I think it was twice the amount we're charging, but there was a lot of in an ideal world kind of situation. In an ideal world, we would have this, this, and this, and everything would run perfect, and we decided we didn't need an ideal world at this time.
Replacing equipment every 2 or 3 years or something like that along there.
But if we can have that at the next workshop, that'd be helpful.
Absolutely, we could take, it just depend on the, it depends on the funding level that you want. I mean, we can get to a level that we can support it and maintain, but, you know, equipment's gonna need to be replaced at some point.
I mean, the other one you don't have in here that goes along with fire is EMS. I mean, EMS is sucking us dry.
Well, EMS is not in its own funding category, it's actually funded out of the general fund.
I
so
know,
include
but
that.
that's another one, like Randy said.
How much we
If
saved last year.
whatever it costs to run it, I know that varies, depending on how many people we haul to Tallahassee. But the bottom line is the collection rate is so low
Could we
compared
do
to...
an MSTU for,
We need to do something for ambulance. I don't know how much it is in the red, but it's sucking us dry, I know that.
We were just looking at, there's a
that was the MSB.
local option sales tax you can do for EMS.
We need to entertain some way of funding.
I'd love to see an MSTU, if that's legal, that everybody pays $55 a year, and it'd take $800,000, wouldn't it, out of our ad valorem?
MSTU would be a millage.
Yeah, that's going to be a millage, it's going to be included in your rollback rate.
It would not, so therefore it'd not be a flat rate like an MSB.
No. it wouldn't
Is there
be
any
flat.
legal way to do a flat rate like an MSBU for ambulance service?
There's a statutory provision in 125.271, I think it is. If Wakulla County gets put into a RACIC, you would have a
What is RACIC?
rural area of critical economic concern.
We're trying to
which we've
get
been
in that
working
now.
on.
All right.
If you're in a RACIC, you are eligible to levy this, and it looks much more like an assessment than it does a millage-based tax.
But it's the...
And it's for EMS.
It's kind of like a flat tax, everybody, each household pays the same?
It would probably be a flat per dwelling unit, but it's going to vary in your non-residential categories, much like fire does.
Somewhere you got to say enough is enough, though, when costs are going up, and when is enough of any service, as much as you can afford. You collect taxes for the EMS, and then they add services, and we collect more tax, and they add more services. Somewhere you have to stop
We
the
should be
service.
up to 6 ambulance stations by now. We just managed to add a third.
I believe it'd be interesting to
Yeah.
see level of service from 1985 or 1990. How many ambulances did we have per capita then? How many ambulances do we have per capita now? If they're kind of in line, then let's grow it.
No, but that's what the impact fee study showed we should have 6 ambulance stations by now. That was my memory of when I looked at it last year. We only have 3.
We can't afford
We
6
have-
ambulance
We
stations.
used to have an MSBU, and remember we got challenged, that's just now got settled, and we paid $100-something a year. What was
Oh, that was fire and ambulance.
It was.
I think
It was
ambulance
fire
was
and-
$50.
It was fire and ambulance, and then we stopped the ambulance part, and we still collect the fire. So it's not like this is a new idea. This has been, we did it for years and years, and it helped. In fact, it operated in the black. It doesn't any longer.
I understand about not having a lot more than you need, but I think Fran's probably still driving around that old 1984 Blazer. I don't know if she is. Trying to get retired?
She bought it.
Bought it, oh, yeah. There's not a lot of further spending, because our group used to maintain those ambulances, and they wear them down, till they're wore out before they buy a new one.
Plus, we've been trying, we want to avoid litigation. And increasingly, we have all our ambulances out of the county at the same time. So, I think we're putting ourselves we're required as a county government to provide that service. And if we don't satisfy what, might be legally even defensible, not only is it bad for our citizens, but it's going to be bad for our budget. So in general, I would support lowering the property taxes and going more with these kind of user fees that fund the specific services.
I like user fees. It's if you use it, you pay for it.
Okay. We got to figure out what that needs to be. Can you bring us some numbers that...
Well, when will we have an answer on this RACIC thing?
I was,
We have a meeting next week on the RASIC.
Governor's office.
At the governor's office. It's still a little ways off.
We're not eligible, did you say?
You're not eligible until you're in a RASIC, and
has to
you
come by
would not
governor's.
be able to put it on the tax bill for this fall because the procedural steps in Florida statutes have not been complied with because you're not eligible yet. And-
Do we need to get our legislative delegation to lobby more?
We have got our letters of support from every member of our legislative delegation to be in the RASIC. We're at the final step right now where we have to get the governor to sign an amended executive order to put.
I was up there today, and we were talking with Mr. Munford, and he didn't have it on his agenda. We were just out. He asked our lobbyist person to quickly get him bullet points so he could today.
We did that last night.
Is that Jennifer you're talking about? Our
Yeah, but he, yeah.
I know, Heather, your group's been working that for us.
Yeah, we've already gotten letters of support from all of our senators and representatives. We've already been to the Ready Committee, which is a requirement. We're hoping to we were trying to pull it in before we had a change of governor, but the Christ administration was not willing to push this last December and put it through. So now we're meeting with the governor's staff on next week.
Mr. Munford just took it to the floor today.
It's something
this is
different.
a-
This is something different.
This is the rural area of critical economic concern.
That's what he took today. I talked with him today, and he said he had to have that information today to present it to the floor.
It's not done by the legislature, it's done by the governor's office. I think we're talking about a couple different.
I think today, the meeting was about, the meeting time today was originally to discuss including some of the language for the Northwest BP oil relief. And we're already reaccounting RUDI, which is something similar, but we're just including this in all of that language. A RASIC is another type of incentive. We're one of 3 rural counties in Florida, the other 2 being Walton and Flagler, which are much wealthier than we are, but are not included in RASICs already, which enables us a lot of things. We'll get Jennifer to get you more information on it. I learned a couple days ago, the South Florida RASIC actually did not renew in time, so it's going to be something that's going to be discussed a lot in the near future in the governor's office. So I think he's going to have to do. You're put in a RASIC by executive order of the governor. So I think that the South Florida one, there's a lot of South Florida counties angry that they didn't get it renewed in time. So it's going to be something he's going to hear about. So we'll probably be able to be added in easier, I'm hoping.
What's so very bad about that, we had 6 counties on our east and 6 counties on our west, and there's a little spot called Wakulla, and we're just sitting there.
You're the only fiscally constrained county, I believe, in the state that's not in a RASIC at the moment.
Is it even realistic, though, to think that any of this is going to come to pass?
I think you will be included in it.
By the time we need to figure our budget out.
Yeah, I think you'll be included in a RASIC fairly soon, is our intent and our hope. We've already presented the case, we have all the materials, I mean, we're at the last straw, but you're not, regardless of whether it happens next week or the week after that, to do an EMS tax assessment, you're not going to be able to do that. You could do it, but you're not going to be able to collect it on the tax bill this year because your deadline
That was
to
my
do certain
question.
procedural steps was January 1.
Now, what all can be included in that RASIC? Just ambulance
Then,
or public
well, no, I
safety?
mean, being included in a RASIC authorizes you to use the EMS tax assessment. There's a ton of other benefits to being in a RASIC, including a lot of times you don't have to do grant matches for certain grants.
There's certain grants that only are applicable.
My question, I guess, is, it's going to sound radical, but could you use that to do an assessment, say, for public safety, which would include the sheriff, fire,
No,
ambulance in one group?
no.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you to just ask EMS to work smarter, however that is. Not hire people that we have to pay overtime to. Surely there's some ways to look at that and do something smarter. I don't know how. I'm not an ambulance director. I don't understand it, but I'm just asking that somebody look at it and cut where we can cut. That's all I'm asking.
We're looking into it, sir.
Okay.
There's a way we're working with the sheriff's office and see if there's economy of scale in some places that we can merge some of our functions and
Okay.
and look at what everybody else is doing for overtime and seeing how they're programming it. So
Our capital outlays and EMS paid for out of 1 cent sales tax or out of our ad valorem tax general fund.
we've been funding for ambulances out of the 1 cent sales tax.
So the general fund portion strictly is for salaries, gas, operating stuff and salaries, basically.
Right.
Not
Yes.
for capital.
Mostly just operations. Commissioner, no, we couldn't use, we don't have EMS impact fees. We didn't have them until just recently, so.
What's that? That's right.
Yeah, the ambulance is built for public buildings.
Okay, go on, Tim, please.
Well, so what we'll do is the next meeting, we'll bring back something regarding, for the fire MSBU, just dust off that analysis we did last year and let you take another look at that and see if we can work that out.
Tim, we got a couple constitutional officers that need to go.
Absolutely.
Can we just interrupt here and let them say something real quick?
This is your meeting.
Sheriff?
Yeah, I have some medicine I have to take, it's real time sensitive, and I have about...
I don't want to call EMS to come get you.
No,
sir.
I'm fine. I was hoping that the meeting tonight, because I've been in a lot of talk with Tim and the public safety director, I thought we were going to be directed to ways to figure out to cut back and save money and not increase. And so that's, we're talking about cutting back 5% on ad valorem monies, but yet then we're talking about, because fire needs more, maybe go up $5 more on MSBU, but people still don't have jobs, they can't pay the taxes. I was in hopes that you would direct us to figure out ways that we can cut back on every level, you know, and consolidate services, whatever it may take, but not increase anything. Maybe we could even decrease MSBU, because we know we got looking at a solid waste MSBU, and to see if we can, I think, what I'm hearing from people is they can't pay it. They don't have jobs, they can't pay it. So let's figure out ways we can cut. Everybody sit down and just really cut. Cut services, cut.
I totally agree with you.
We got to cut.
Right, but you guys have come in level funding for 3 years, so, you know, other people have been cutting. We're hoping you all make some cuts this year.
That's not true. That is simply not true. That is just not true. And Tim, you're going to back me up on that's not true. I mean, that's just political bull.
That's what Mary Dean told me.
That's not
that
true.
you all are absorbing, by staying level funding, you're absorbing some of these
No one else is
income.
doing that. That's not true, Mr. Arts. That's not true. People, that is just not true. You're not being told the truth if you've been told that from other areas. That is not true. And we're absorbing, true, but you're saying we're the only ones. You hope we'll do cuts.
I think what he's saying is that we've asked for 10% cuts and no one achieved a 10% cut last year of the other constitutionals. Or so, yeah. You might have.
I had a sheet of paper from Walton County. They had like 600 employees in the height of their system. On let's say the building department, they had 600 employees. Today they got 288. And it went right on down the list of the number of employees that they had, and it's sort of like a half. Their market might have been a little hotter. Their market would, of course, been hotter than ours because it included Destin and so forth. But we're not willing even to. I got slapped around because I voted against the library, hiring somebody. If we're not willing at some point in time to not replace people, just all the way around the county, everybody, we can't go forward in this environment with the same number of people we had in a great environment. We can't continue to spend the money. Let's put it another way. We can't continue to spend the money in this environment that we spent in the last environment. And absolutely, there's some pain involved in this. It's we just can't. It just don't make sense.
That's all I was hoping that you would direct us for everybody to go back and try to figure out ways and work as a work group And how can we consolidate some things or whatever and save and cut back the taxes? And cut them back so you can rebuild your revenue, your reserves and stuff like that. That's what, because there's no money.
I want you to take away from the ninth meeting. I think we have directed our constitutionals in this, that we're looking hopefully for a 5% cut from everybody.
Across the board.
Across the board.
But, okay, we're paid ad valorem.
Right.
But now we're going to look at fire and if we need to increase the MSBU by $5, we'll do that to increase to make them solvent or whatever. But let's cut them back. Let's don't increase them. Let's cut them back. You're going to cut us back. Let's cut everybody back.
And I think the concern that's being raised tonight is that when and that perhaps fire, when they requested the $61 fee last year, the people who did may have decided they had gone too low, and it may not. They may have gotten cut too much last year. So, I don't know. That's what we're talking about. We'll see what happens. But we are asking for a 5% cut, and if you can cut more than that, we would be even more appreciative. And the more we can cut, the more we can save, and we can put money into our revenues. But any cut will be appreciated, so we can help try and make this work. We're looking to save. If we haven't heard from Donnie yet, but I fully other Donnie.
Well, as I
fully anticipate being told we're going to have less money.
As I sit here myself, I'm not willing anything that's got a tax on it until we have cut somewhere. I'm not. And Tim, when we get down here at some point, you're going to tell us that we need these number of dollars to go forward. Yeah, that's sort of what I'm looking for, is how many dollars do we need to go forward, and how many dollars do we have, and then we start cutting instead of raising money. Then we start cutting, and I'm not talking about taking somebody's job. I'm not talking about that, but there's other ways of cutting without taking a job.
But it's getting to the point where that's not the case any longer, and the sheriff can say the same thing. I mean, it's getting to the point, if you want that many cuts and you want personnel reduced, you're going to see a different organization than you have now. You're going to see a reduced organization that's going to be able to provide the same services that you have now. So I think that's where we're here, and we're starting this process early, is what kind of organization at the end of the day do you want to see? I mean, I think Donnie wants the same answers. I mean, we're just looking for what services do you not want?
Let's let Lynn have a say here.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure that all the constitutional officers, that in addition to the direction that was mentioned earlier about aiming for 5% reduction across the board, that one thing we looked at and is coming back to us is an early retirement option that'll actually help save some money this year, but would continue even more savings in the years ahead by either eliminating some positions or bringing in younger, lower paid employees. So I'm not sure if you all are aware that we're doing that, but we hope that the sheriff's office and also maybe some of the others, if you have employees who would qualify as having been here for being eligible to take early retirement, that you look at what we're doing and consider it.
I had talked to a lot of people about the idea of consolidating all public safety together into one. If there could be cost savings realized through that, through duplication of whatever. But when you told me about the basic, I guess, if there's a way to pay for a flat fee, I'd rather say that, because I'm a big advocate of keeping the millage rate low and a flat fee. And my goal in this budget process is to not raise taxes. I know revenue goes down, but I don't want taxes to go up to offset it. So if we got to cut, then we got to cut. But there seems to be other options in here we haven't talked about yet that may be more fair. 5% cut, from what I can see, will make up the budget shortfall at 8.75 mils. Is that basically correct? You said 5% cuts $1 million. A budget shortfall at 8.5 mils next year will be 997.
I mean, 8.75, right? 8.75. Leaving the millage rate the same.
Do we have the clerk of the court? Is his person here?
No.
He had to leave. He wanted to stay here.
Earlier.
Wife had a procedure.
So the 5% cut, if we do a 5% cut across the board, or if we save $1 million, we can keep the millage rate next year at 8.75.
Yes.
That's what it boils down to.
Yes.
But, yeah,
Let me try to
That's 10 people for us.
clarify something here. I want to say a couple things. First of all, Tim and I went and met with the sheriff and his staff a while back, and we talked about cutting. And we came out of that meeting, and we tasked Tim to get with, or I did, I just took it upon myself to say, go sit down with the sheriff's folks and let's try to consolidate, let's talk about consolidation, let's talk about whatever we got to do to cut costs. And y'all been doing that.
Yes, have you
Yes, we have.
Yes.
Okay.
We have.
And we're going to keep doing that.
Keep doing it.
Okay? Now, let me back up a little bit. I want to make sure that everybody understands this fire fiasco. We took the fire out of the general fund to the tune of $420,000. Now, that, to me, is cutting. Okay? Call it what you want. We took it out of the general fund. Now, before you rear up, Mr. Moore, let me explain the rest of it. And we put all of fire under the MSBU, which is where it should be, in my opinion. And we're paying for fire. Now, the choice we have is we can get rid of paid firefighters, and we can save ourselves $420,000, and we can go back to like we were for 100, the last 2 centuries, and just have volunteers. That's an option. And you can cut $420,000. But it's not fair to sit up here and say that we're increasing the MSBU. We screwed up last year when we made it $61. We should have made it $70 or $75. In one fell swoop, did that, it would have paid for itself. We'd be done. We wouldn't be talking about fire right now. But we didn't. We didn't have the political will to do that, so we went back to 61. That's the honest to God truth. So that, that's what we're going to have to do with fire. So set that aside. And then I just brought up the idea of ambulance because it's milking us dry. It's killing us. So we have got to figure out some way to better serve the people in EMS than what we're doing. Now, maybe that's consolidation. I don't know. Or the idea that you have, Randy. But it's still a mess, and we owe the citizens, like Lynn said, a service. And the last point I'm going to make, and we'll go on, is like Tim is suggesting, the next step is to start cutting people. When people call for a deputy, y'all going to have to start probably deciding, is that important enough to go do right now? Y'all going to have to start figuring out which call gets the most importance. And they do that in a lot of places now. And I hope we don't have to do that, but that may be where we're headed. Or when they go to the rec park, it's not going to be as nice as it used to be. Okay? We can't build any more ball fields. We can't turn on the lights anymore. Whatever it is. That's the kind of services we're going to lose, or the library is going to have to shut down half of its time. Whatever it takes, that's where we're headed. If we do all this cutting you're talking about.
Well, the people, it's always a deal is that I want to cut his position and her position, but I'm pretty tight. You can't get over here and cut me. It seems like everybody else's position has room to cut except mine.
Where are you suggesting, Jerry? I'm curious to know where you're suggesting that is, because that bothers me. Because we've cut, we've not hired people. We've already lost positions that we haven't rehired.
How many? Where? Who did we not rehire?
We haven't rehired the most recent one is.
Yes, the grants person.
Okay.
Maintenance man was budgeted.
Pardon?
2 or 3 people in.
Yeah.
Maintenance man is gone. We didn't rehire that. There's been several over the. I mean, to sit here and say we've done nothing is not the truth, because we have, and that frustrates me when I keep hearing that, because we're working towards that.
I'm not saying you haven't done anything. I'm saying we're sitting here with the same staff in the whole county.
Okay, let's do this, Jerry. Let's do away with everybody in the administrative office. When they come to the door to want a public records request, who's going to give it to them?
I didn't.
Who's going to give it to them?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. It's
That's
just
what I'm hearing you say.
Well, the people are not going to get the same service. If we reduce you can cut the budget. You don't have to cut the people. You can cut the hours they work. You can everybody can take off a day.
you know.
I'll listen to all those ideas.
If everybody takes off, I don't know, Tim.
But I don't want to just do it in administrative. I'm tired of hearing that we're just going to do it on the backs of the administrative budget. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to vote to do that. I'm one vote. I'm not going to do that, Jerry. I want everybody to do it. Across the board.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you, but...
That's what we do, I'm happy.
No, I totally agree with you. It doesn't, we have to, it has to be all the way across the county.
Okay.
We're going to all have to share the same, and the people are going to have to share that pain also, because they're not going to get the same service that they got earlier.
Okay.
But I'm not talking like about just, let's just see how far we can reduce the county.
Okay, Donna, you finish up. You got to take your
I'd like to
minute.
say one thing. All I want to do really is get a work group together with the public safety people and the constitutionals, and let's sit down and give us some options for how we can cut. I agree with you, Commissioner, across the board.
I'd like to at
Everybody.
least, I'm sorry, Don, I know you got to leave, but my opinion is I'd like to at least explore that. For example, if you have an ambulance, deputy could be trained to do this, if there's some cost savings there, I'd like to at least look at it.
We look at the options and give you like 2 or 3 different options, and then any of them might not work.
They just
So we
leave
surely
things the
need
way
to-
they are.
We surely need to explore them, and then if we can't come up with any other idea, then the people will look favorable to us if we had to increase something, but let's
Okay.
that's all I want.
I think that's fine. I think that's what Tim's been trying to work in that direction, but
We
maybe
just need
not.
some more people involved.
I told Scott the other day, expand it however you guys
Absolutely.
feel you need to bring in, I'm all for that.
Because I don't know their problem.
Seeing how they cut, because we do it usually in a vacuum, and I think it's a good idea. Absolutely.
I stood out and open when everybody can have.
I don't want the county to think that I'm talking just about the county. So I am absolutely not talking about the county. I'm talking about the whole county.
Absolutely.
I'm talking about the whole county. I've already lost my library card. I've got a spigot, I got a water hose on the spigot because I didn't want to hire a fire chief, and I may have my key to the county. I may not be able to get in the county office in the morning, but I'm not talking about just the county. I'm talking about the whole
I
county.
mean, just the administration.
That's right. I am absolutely not talking about. I'm talking about we all have to share the pain.
They've worked great with us. I mean, really, they were, public safety director and I've had 3 meetings. And we just don't know where to go. We got to get some more people involved to know where we need to go, but we can do it.
Okay, Donnie, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Alan?
I just want to add into that, and we're talking about, when we talk about these things and what you're saying, we're talking about the 3 major county employers, county administration, the sheriff's department, and the clerks. Because there's a difference between our offices, which hire 30 people, to many more in some of the others, and the supervisor election, which I think is buddy plus 2, right? And so if we cut him by 5%, just wondered, he might be able to cut his budget by 5%.
That's my point earlier,
Yeah.
exact point.
Yeah, I apologize again, step down the room again.
We just say, if we say we got to cut $1 million, but he may cut $2,000, somebody, you know what I'm saying?
I'm just, yeah. And Buddy,
May end up being 5%.
and he'll come, I know later we're going to have presentations from all of them. I know that his years are different. In an off-election year, his costs are lower. In an on-election year, his costs are higher. So we'll be talking about that.
Some people have cut.
I think you have to cut where you can cut, and some people aren't going to be able to absorb it. Like my example was the veterans guy. I mean,
Capital costs for these guys come out of general revenue too, right? If
Yes.
Donnie needs a new truck, or Buddy, whatever, capital costs come out of it also.
yes,
Not
They don't have it.
Not you, Don, you know.
they don't have a special fund.
Okay, let's keep going.
Okay. Well, we've also presented some alternative revenue options that you might want to consider. The first one, and this is specifically designed, I was looking at the road department fund. That fund, obviously, especially now with gas prices hitting the roof, does not operate in the red. It almost operates as an enterprise fund. It's not technically an enterprise fund, but we fund most of our road grading operations out of there through the contract with ASG. But unfortunately, as gas prices increase, users decrease, and that prohibits us from generating the revenue that we need to run that department strictly with gas taxes. We've been postponing and putting off using a subsidy from the general fund, but at some point we might need to start subsidizing that fund with the general fund.
Is the biggest drain on that ESG?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously that's where most of your operations come from, but included in that is where you get your road grading and all that stuff
What
from.
kind of cut are we telling them they got to give them?
They did 5% last year.
I know when I was there, I think you and I talked about this, my budget included fuel. But when it was renegotiated, I think now the county pays for the fuel. Is that?
Yes.
So there's a couple, I paid,
I think it's based on their contract, though.
it's based on their contract, that's correct. But I paid $400,000 or $500,000 fuel when I was there. I didn't have 6 or 8 people in my office. I had me and 2 or 3 others, so.
Yeah.
There's opportunities for cost savings there is what I'm going to say. I think the anti-France sentiment at the time was whatever it costs to get France out of here, let's do it. Past history, but I'm saying I don't think it was.
Well, I've been meeting with John Ullman and Cleve, and we've been talking about how to reduce. So we've been.
And they're going to propose a significant cut.
I
So
think it's there.
the Elms nickel is something that we can impose. It's a 5-cent gas tax that we can add to the 7 that we currently impose. Option for consideration. We could have some estimates that were a little bit older. I didn't want to waste staff time digging up estimates if there was no will of the board to do that. We can bring back some estimates if you're interested.
Is this a real 5 cents, so the gas price at the pump would go up 5 cents? Because I know the 1 cent, that's a sales tax, of course. The state has a 9 cent, there's no fractional cent tax at our
Go
option?
1 to 5, you don't have to do the full 5.
But can you do a fractional, I guess, as well?
I think you have to do it in whole penny increments.
I don't know.
I
I
can
guess
look
if
into
it
it.
got to that, if you couldn't work things out, maybe, because one of the main things people want is their road graded.
Right.
Well, yeah.
And that's unfortunate. I mean, the cost of that increases every year, so it's, and gas prices go down every year, so it doesn't work for us. One thing I did not include in here, and I apologize, there is another optional sales tax that we can impose. It's called, now that we're Charter County Transportation System Surtax. This is a 1 cent sales tax, similar to your regular 1 cent sales tax, but it's dedicated for transportation purposes, roads, bridges. It would have to be done by referendum, and that way it's pretty much kind of like a user fee. Like most of the taxes we're kind of proposing here, it's based not on ad valorem, but on, what you spend.
But it's on a referendum.
Yes. The nickel tax can be bonded. It can also do some of the stuff we talked about earlier. I'm not pushing for this. I'm just telling you, it's some of the stuff we talked about in the last presentation. It could be used towards that. It can be used for mass transit. I know Commissioner Arts has discussed that in the past.
Bullet train?
The Charter County Transportation, you could use for that.
Bullet train between here and Tallahassee?
Yeah.
When I ran, there are people who would like to see that, but I said that was foolish. But if y'all are jumping on the bullet train idea,
I'm not.
no, but it could be.
Bullet mule or something.
But it could be used for things that we talked about earlier, like when we talk about expanding roads, side traffic to relieve traffic on Crawfordville Highway. It could be used for that. That's all stuff we'll talk about in the future.
This could relieve your 1 cent sales tax of the loans that you have for road paving and all that. 60% of that goes towards roads. This could be imposed. You could reallocate your regular 1 cent sales tax to other needs that you have in the county.
Not imposed by referendum. I would think the general public would say, all right, now you got this 1 cent sales tax, this other one's expiring, you want me to vote it back in? I just think they wouldn't buy that.
Well, you'd
They're
have
both
to,
on referendum.
you'd have to tell them what you were going to use it for,
Right.
and hopefully that they'd see value in that.
Is that penny on referendum?
Which penny are we talking
The one, the road penny that you just talked about?
The Charter County Transportation Surtax is required to be by referendum. The Elms is whole pennies only.
And it's not by
1 through 5.
referendum.
It does not have to be by referendum, but it can be sent to
I'm
referendum.
talking about the current 1 cent sales tax right now.
Okay. As the discussion had led, we are seeing decreases in property tax revenue. So one way to offset that is to diversify our revenue. The 2 options that are next are your public services tax that we currently are available to impose as a charter county, that we didn't have the option to before, as well as the communication services tax, which we do impose, however, we just don't impose it to its full potential. Right now, we impose about 1.82%, I believe, and we're allowed to go up to as much as 5.2%. And with those 2 are 2 options that, right now, we use the communication services tax as support for the general funds. We could use the public services tax for that as well. Or, however you want to choose, you could use it for other things. It's very fungible. So.
Quick question on top of page 5. It says it's applicable to electricity, metered natural gas, liquefied petroleum. But then in the chart, it mentions water. Or in the last paragraph, it says Staff research total revenue generated from electric, water, and propane. So you can add the tax to water or no?
It is on water.
I mean, the first, you see what I'm saying, on page 5,
I just might not have added it on
said it is a tax on the purchase of electricity, metered natural gas. I should have said and water, that's what I'm asking.
All utilities.
Yeah, I believe
all
it said
utilities.
water, so
And
that,
we can't just say we only want to tax electricity. If we do this, it's a tax on electricity, gas, water.
Is that correct? Huh?
I mean, the statute is not clear on that point, but there is some judicial precedent where they've elected to tax some utility services, but not all. So you could.
You know, guys, if we could lower the millage rate down to 6 mils and impose a 5% tax, I'd love to see that.
Well,
It'd have to be a corresponding reduction in the millage rate, of course.
it'd be a reduction. If 5 mils brings, if 5,
Whatever it is, you know what I
it'd be like 1 mil. It'd be a 1 mil reduction.
But
Okay,
it would diversify your.
yeah, whatever it is.
it would almost be a user fee because
I really like this idea that everybody's paying for this. Everybody that has power, which is most of us, some of us don't. So everybody's paying, not just the people that pay property taxes are paying. That's, if we reduce the millage rate by, to offset the additional revenue. I'm not saying let's spend more because we can get more. I'm saying let's cut property taxes because we get revenue from somewhere else. Jerry,
I think what Jerry-
jive with you?
No, not really.
But lower taxes on commercial property.
Basically speaking, we're increasing taxes to pay for the cost of government, and somehow we have to get the cost of government down.
Okay, let's say we get the cost of government down to $1 million. We can get the millage rate down to 7 mils. Let's just say that, theoretically. Would you be supportive if we could take it from 7 down to 6 if we did this tax?
I'd have to look at it. I just can't.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying.
After everybody in government has contributed, then I don't mind looking at other things. But until everybody in government has contributed, I'm just over here on the wall.
And you're aware that I think we cut $1 million last year.
It doesn't matter what we cut last year.
I'm just saying we keep reducing the size of government in Wakulla County. We collected less in taxes last year than we did the year before, and we collected less in taxes the year before that than we did the year before. We are reducing the size of our government. There have been cuts. I anticipate there being more cuts this year. I'm just saying I want to make sure we're getting our rhetoric right. I mean, we have been reducing. You want to see us reduce more.
I don't want to, I said early on I don't want to fire anybody, so I want to go to the office tomorrow. So I'm not talking about having anybody lose their job, and I will be against that. But any other way that we can,
Okay. No.
I think kind of what Jerry's saying is, I love analogies, but when you go to buy a car, you negotiate your best deal first, then you present your rebate. If we could negotiate our best deal and then look at these other revenue sources.
until we've done that, and it's not, we just can't. I'm going to talk to the, maybe I shouldn't, but in the constitutional people, they're not any different than we are. When somebody leaves that employment, then they need to fill in that spot with somebody who's already there. We need to do the same thing. We may not be able to give the same service, but I can take the heat on not giving the same service. But all the constitutional people, if you have somebody who leaves, then fill in. These are horrible times, and they're going to get worse because it's not over yet.
There are things people are willing to pay for, though. On the other side of that, if Cheryl cuts her staff in half, say, to save money, people are going to be very unhappy having to stand there and wait to pay their...
She would never have to do that.
Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
I'm just taking it to the extreme, but you understand what I'm saying. I think people expect a minimum...
and
willing to pay for it.
And a lot of people, our population's doubled or has grown significantly in the last 10 years. Those people who've moved here in the last 10 years have a high expectation of service because they came from communities where they had it. So one of the things you have in Wakulla County that makes our community unique and special is you have a lot of people who have been here a long time and have never had services and don't see the need for services because they've never had them. It's those 20,000 people that moved here in the last 15 years on top of the 10,000 who already grew up here. It's those 20,000 who are like, well, I want things, and they're the ones that we're having, and they also vote. But it's a hard, that's what we're trying to do. I wanted to say, I wanted to discuss the public services tax. I worry about it because this one affects, when we talk about it, and you're going to hear people talk about the little old ladies and that kind, because they're homestead exempted and their property taxes aren't going to go up. But if you also make their electric bill go up $10 a month, that's something they might notice. But it doesn't mean they're paying more of the fair share for government. So I'm willing to have the conversation. It's just something to keep in mind. And then with the communication services tax, I'm actually more in favor of this one because I feel like everything it provides is a luxury. So
I'm with Alan too. You know, my goal is to reduce the tax bill the citizen has to pay every year. If we can do it by, which I think is a smart thing to do, to diversify our revenue source, not just ad valorem taxes. That, you know, most, I don't know how many people, 50% don't pay anything, is it?
yeah.
So if we can, instead of half of the population of the county paying for all the services, if we can expand that out to all the people, pay for 10 or 20% of the services, I mean, I think that's only fair.
Communication services tax is on cable, cell phones, and landlines. So the landline's the only non-luxury item of it. But those are the three things. Is on internet, which comes through cable, is one of the things. And cell phones, cable, and all of that, people can go without. It doesn't affect their ability to live, and it's a very minimal tax that every other community charges a great deal of. And talking briefly, because it's been brought up a couple times, as we start talking about cutting staff or not cutting staff and furloughs and things, I mean, I look forward to seeing what comes up. I worry about, we may not be firing anybody, but I don't want to, Jay, at the same time, make it where they don't want their job. Like if we tell people we're giving you a 20% cut or something in salary, they'll still have a job, and they're still lucky to have a job because the economy sucks. But at the same time, there's a way to get rid of people. So just something to think about while we're talking about this. I don't think that's what your intention is. I'm just saying it's my reaction. So thank you.
Okay, move on to the anticipated rollback rate calculation.
All right. Well, we just did a quick and dirty analysis. If it does drop 10% property tax value, what the rollback rate is anticipated. And it looks like it's pushing your 10 mil cap. We estimated probably about 9.722 would be the rollback rate, which would be what it would take to generate the same revenue as you did this year. So obviously, I'm going to throw it out there and ask for the rollback rate as a direction moving forward, but I know that probably won't win that. No. But I figure we could start high and whittle our way down. So, but basically, what you're looking at though is we just gave you three scenarios. At the 10 mil cap, you would be $285,000 over what you collected this year in the plus. At the rollback rate, obviously you stay the same. At 8.75 of where you are now, that's where that $1 million number that we were talking about, the 997,000, where we would come up short this year. So if we wanted to keep the millage rate the same, we have to cut $1 million from the budget somehow, or diversify our revenues with one of the taxes that we just talked about. So that's kind of the option going forward. I was looking to get some direction on how you want me to start building the budget. Do you want me to start at the rollback rate? Do you want me to start it at a lower percentage at some other number?
The current rate's my opinion, 8.75.
Okay.
Tim, if you were asked to cut 5% from the administrative budget versus 010-11, you wouldn't have any problem with that, right? Doing that, I mean, because you eliminated a couple positions. Abbott's department, I think, has some unfilled positions.
If you include administration, you're talking about administration, meaning county administrator's office, OMB?
Everything.
Okay. And what's in that office over there?
No, parks, ambulance, everything that's underneath the control of the board.
Howland.
It's probably about it's probably about I won't say it's going to be easy, because if it was easy, we would have been able to do it last year. I'd have to look at, I mean, it's not going to be easy at all. And it's going to require people going home.
I'll probably lose my seat up here too, but if we ask this lady to take a 5% cut, we can take a 5% cut.
I don't think.
Her program's severely
No,
undercut.
I didn't say that. This is an example.
Okay.
Point of frank.
Okay.
I'm just like, animal control can barely keep their doors open.
Well, I wasn't, I was just, I didn't know. If I asked Lynn to take, well, anyway, if we ask,
If we can, then
if we ask the citizens to take a cut,
we can't do that, though.
we can't.
No.
You all would have to,
Change the charter.
it's set, your salary is set.
But you can donate to the county. I've donated to the county,
How did
so
that
you
go?
can do that.
When is your incentive program that you did last year, Lynn? Have we heard back about that or done anything
Yeah,
about that?
nobody applied for the first one. But I
You
have,
advertised it?
we did,
Yeah, sorry.
yeah.
Let's stay on this right now, guys.
Tim,
Try to finish this.
if you told Donnie's office, for example, to cut 5% or Buddy, that's up to them how they do that, is that correct?
Exactly.
Right. What if they don't want to cut insurance to their employees, and they said, we're not going to buy a truck?
They don't have to.
I mean, does it have to be across the board? The insurance increase, I'm saying, if he found a way to absorb it somehow, or Cheryl did, or whatever, can one constitutional officer be different from the other as far as what they pay for, what they contribute to health insurance? That's my question.
I think, Debbie, it would be, they'd probably have to offset that with an increase in their salary.
Yeah.
I think the
just
CHP
give
is
them a
going to
little
take
more
the
money.
same out of their check if they want to offset that with an
Because
increase.
we're all the same, we all,
We're under one contract, CHP.
But they can give their people more money to offset it.
if they can,
They can give them a pay
it's up to
raise.
them. If we tell the sheriff he's got to cut 5%, it's up to him how he cuts it.
Exactly. And that's what we suggested, that's what I suggested last year. I'm not gonna tell the sheriff or Donnie or anybody else how to trim 10% out of the budget. We may just have to say, you're gonna have to trim 10% out of your budget. And that needs to be direction from this board.
I think that's the proper thing. That's our job.
What would happen?
How to do it.
What would happen? Can you run the numbers if every department, if they took off one day a month, if everybody who works for the county gave up one day a month, they still work, but they just give up one day of income a month.
Love that.
We looked at
You
that
know,
last
they don't
Yeah,
go,
furloughs. Yeah.
they don't smoke, they don't go to the store and get a sack of suds,
On-
and they don't go to the restaurant one night, you know.
So,
On the 21st, I'm going to bring you an item, because we're going to need to make some, this is just a prelude to next year. This year, we're going to have to make some cuts. Inside of that recommendation is going to be for some furloughs. It's going to be for percentage cuts this year from everybody in the room, constitutionals, board alike, departments, everybody. So this is kind of just, we're talking about next year. We need to worry about this year as well. We need to get...
So the one day won't help you this year.
No, it will. He's going to be, he's bringing an item
Okay.
proposing to take so many furlough days or days.
Okay, well, I hadn't seen that.
No, it's coming.
Coming at the next meeting.
It's coming at the next meeting. And I apologize for the delay. We're just trying to get our arms around it where we need it to be and a good number to give you. But yeah, we've looked at a couple different scenarios, either 5 days tied around the holidays, 10 furlough days, half days on Fridays and Mondays. It'll tell you how much we can cut.
Why take a half a day? Why don't we just all go to work that day and just don't receive salary for that day? You can't do that?
I don't think that would be a very popular option.
That wouldn't be a very productive.
Hey, it's not going to be any,
Something,
there won't be any popular options. I don't think any of it's going to
Well,
be
one of the,
popular.
like we said, we looked at it, would be, at least they often would be open half the day. So if somebody has something that they want a building plan, they want to get in on
Well-
Friday, to be open till noon, and then they can close the office.
Okay, let's
But we can talk about that next meeting.
let's bring it to closure. What do you need direction from us tonight for?
Well, I gave you a laundry list here. You guys tell me what you want me to bring back to you for consideration, and we'll work on it the next.
Are there, I like what Alan said, are there any other luxury or sin-type taxes available to us? Like he said, cell phones, you know, he doesn't have to have a cell phone, he's got one. Can we tax soda or beer, you know what I'm saying?
Well, we're going to look at also, probably in the next meeting, bringing back, taking a look at all our user fees for the parks and rec and all that stuff, see if we're in line. It's been a couple years since we've raised them. We're going to bring probably everything but the kitchen sink to you to consider. This is just the first, like I said, the building block.
But what I'm looking for is, What do you need tonight for this?
Are you interested
fiscal year
in the
we're
flex
now?
cap? Are you interested in the flex cap?
This fiscal year, we're talking about this fiscal year we're in right now?
No, the one coming up next year. This is for next year.
Yes, I am.
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
I mean, if I get a
Let's
head
cap
nod.
and reduction.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. You said the school's 1,000, maybe 2,000, I don't know.
Well, he's proposed 4 or 5, or 3 or 4,000 in here. I think that's a more fair number.
We could start with 4, and then if it's doable, we can, if we need to cut more.
You know
then-
you gotta cut 5%, so this is one of the things to cut that 5%, right? If you think it's better to bring it down to 2,000 and you don't have to increase people's health premiums, I'd personally rather see that, so you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's up to you kind of how to do it, I guess.
I'll try to keep it as high as we can. Like I said, I'm one of the people that get it, so I'm not looking forward to cutting it, but I know it's something that is an option. It's an expense. I'm looking at every expense that we have that's workable.
Again, in private industry, this is unheard of. I mean, you just don't get this. You may have an FSA, which is a flexible spending account, that's pre-tax money, but you don't
No, I
get your
can,
health care paid for if you don't accept the insurance. It's unheard of in private industry.
in my private industry, I had a $5,000 deductible. I was afraid it was
My
just...
previous job had both health insurance and the flex plan, so it depends who you work for.
I worked
Flex
for
plan you
myself.
contribute to, though. The flex
Anyway.
plan was your money, though. You contributed to it.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Higher
Health
copays.
insurance, I guess we can bring back some different plans once we get them, and
Yeah.
you can decide that.
Higher co-pays, give us some options.
We'll bring you a
School
couple
board,
options.
and look at the school board, too.
And the school board, yes, we'll be doing that. Obviously, no position growth. Take that off the list. Some of these are just gimmies.
You have the 5% in, that's something you're gonna
Yeah, that's
work
already been
with.
told, yes.
All right,
Yeah.
then I'd like to see taking a half a day off.
That's another conversation.
Really? I thought you could do that,
For next year,
for whatever we're talking
entirety of
about.
next year, 1 day a week, take off?
Well, just whatever it takes, no, I'm talking about the budget this year.
Well, that's, like I said, that's coming.
Coming.
That's coming.
This
Oh,
is
that's-
next.
okay.
That'll be,
Just remember, that equates to a pay cut. That's all I'm gonna say about it.
Well, they got a job.
Maybe they don't want a job anymore. I mean, okay, I'm not gonna argue anymore about it. I'm not gonna be for that, but go ahead.
solid waste, you've already given me, I think we're marching down that path. Fire MSPU, we can bring back the dust off this analysis on that. Any interest in the Elms tax? Do we,
Not at this time.
no? Okay. Public services tax,
I'm very interested in that. Maybe not at 10%, but maybe some component of it.
it's kind of hard to estimate what it is, but we can kind of give you some scenarios of what we think it'll be. We can get some updated information from our utility suppliers and.
Only if, after the 5%, we can further reduce the millage rate. That'd be the only way I'd be interested.
If there's a
Not-
direct correlation.
direct correlation
the
to
amount,
reduce millage
then I'll
rate,
listen to it.
not additional money to spend on other stuff. Same thing with the other.
No, that's perfect. Communication services tax, we're interested in.
I'm fine with that, I think,
Look at
with the
increases.
max.
Okay.
And I guess back on the MSBU, I'd still like to look at, or continue to look at,
We're doing,
huh?
I'm sorry.
If it will save money consolidating bulk public safety.
I think there's a couple studies, I think Heather's involved in one, that knows about one in Citrus County. I think they're looking into it.
Okay, I just
Maybe-
like to look at it, you know.
I mean, it might be maybe better off to wait and see what happens with them, and
That's
if that
fine.
works, and
But you know what I'm saying, if there's opportunities for cross-training and, you know,
and that's exactly what we're doing. I mean,
We're talking about that now.
for example, the sheriff, talked about maybe using our EMS guys instead of having their own nurses and stuff like that. I think that's
Excellent.
open to the discussion, and definitely, if we can cut some costs, we're all about it. Last thing is the rollback rate, or is it not the rollback rate, it's the 8.75?
I'm for 8.75.
Okay.
That's what I
Everybody
think.
fine with that?
I can start the budget there, like I said.
I don't want to increase it. I know my tax bill next year is going to be lower because my property value went down. I mean,
Right.
that's the truth.
I think everybody's going to experience that.
Yes.
They need to go down. I
will.
don't know how Donnie does it, but no, I won't go there.
Theoretically, in the past, the board really, when the property values went up, the millage rate should have went down drastically because the revenue should have stayed the same. And there is maybe 3% a year of increase, but it went up, the spending went up when the revenues went up. the revenues have come down, the spending's got to go down.
Well, would they-
Basically. It wasn't averaged and leveled out.
Well, and I just, you all get a chance, I'm sure you probably looked at it, our past budgets, when you started to look at it, we were at 10 mils or 9.5, some variation, up until 2004, I think.
I remember.
Historic, forever. I mean, that's what we charged. And then our lowest millage rate was in 2007, and that was also the year we brought in the most revenue. So we were cutting the millage rate, lowering taxes, and bringing in more money, which, God bless them, who saw what was coming?
Guess who paid all that extra revenue?
The new people.
That's right.
That's right. I'd like to hear from the constitutionals briefly.
Donnie, you all right?
Waited 2 hours.
Buddy?
4 hours, some of them.
Thank y'all for being patient.
Patience we have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. You know, the cutting deal, which I'll just give you a rundown because I've been kind of quiet. When I took office, I took over a budget that was already in force. Well, we completed that year, absorbed a $50,000 recount cost because I didn't do anything. I didn't spend anything. We was able to use everything there and recycle. My last year, matter of fact, the one budget just got over with. I was 10% on that budget from the year before. All right, coming up this year, things are going to be a little different. We have 2 election cycle year. You have actually, Alan, you have an election in every budget cycle because of the way it's broken down. But every 4 years, you have 2 elections in one budget cycle. So I just want to let you be aware of the fact. And also, there's a position in the office which I never filled once I came in. It was a position that was there that I just never filled it in because the person had quit or left and she never filled it up, so I just continued on. I think we've been able to give good service to our citizens in the county. And this next budget coming up, I wanted to get you aware of the fact that there's going to be another election cycle included in that budget. So there's a possibility that we might be a tad higher than I am right now. In other words, my next budget year, because January. Yes.
I was going to say, you have to pay for the presidential primary and the county primary.
And the county primary before the actual general election in November, which that's going to be another budget year, as we know. What else was I going to say?
So you aren't coming in with a 5% cut?
Well, I wouldn't think I'd be able to give you a 5%, Miss Lynn. There's no way possible unless we just didn't do anything. I mean, my goodness. And,
I'm going to shut off your air conditioning.
Well, it's not running.
Not now, I'm just kidding you.
And I want you to also be aware of, that in 2016, we're going to need some money. So we need to be preparing for that in the interim because we're going to be required to replace some voting equipment. And you're looking at, in the neighborhood, the last quote I got was $145,000. I don't expect it to go down. If anything, we're going to see that cost go up by the time it's available. Redistricting, I know y'all all aware of this. So, I mean, this is something you handle, but it's coming up here this year. I think it starts in June and everything. So, anyway, let you know that we're doing everything we can to offer the service to the citizens, but at a lower rate. And we've done that so far, and we're going to continue to try.
You have 1 or 2 people in your office?
2 people.
You have probably the smallest constitutional in the county.
Yes, sir, I would think so. Yes, sir.
You give good service.
I try.
Here's some good news. Property values have gone up overnight.
Here comes the tax man. We're going to all get a decrease.
Well, before I get into that, I just want to say Buddy's air conditioner's working good because I paid to get it fixed. And I paid to get the roof fixed that was leaking when they fixed the roof, and the dormers in the front. And we bought the ballast the other day that the county didn't have the money to fix the lights with either. So that's stuff that never gets mentioned or thought about. But I've been really offended with the remark you made that we never cut.
Who made that?
I think you said that that's what it came out, and the rest of us heard it.
No. I was talking about the sheriff's office.
But you didn't say sheriff.
I did, I was talking right to him.
But he was standing, but it come out like all of us.
No, I know you all made cuts last year.
We cut everything we can. Every year since I've been elected, we've cut. And on top of that, I've given you back 32,000 or more every year that we made and saved out of the budget. And so that adds up to 3 or 4%. When you get to 3 or 4% you cut, that makes you 5 or 6%. Well, I've got $50-something thousand sitting there now, but I'm going to wait till August or September to give it to you because I've cut to the point that I don't know how much more I can cut due to the fact that fuel is going to go up, and I'm required to see every piece of property once every 5 years, so I've got to have them continually go. So I don't know. I know that it will increase in my budget. Now, whether I can cut some more, we've absorbed 2 positions. I have one fellow that he already takes a furlough day every 2 weeks just because he wants to do that. But it's getting to the point with the smaller budgets that we have that once you cut so far, and typically personnel is about 80% of the budget. That's what's left to cut. And the last thing I want to do is to cut a person. I know last year I stood up here and I argued to pay the increase in health care for the employees because the people that are making $20,000 and $22,000 a year, that could be a house payment or food on the table for them. Most of them are single parents, have kids. I don't know what the legislature's going to do with the retirement this year. They're going to probably receive a hit there. Then if we hit them with health care, you reach a point. Yes, they got a job and they're proud of that. But can they survive on what they're doing and still work? And then if you were talking about doing the, I guess, solid waste grant also, I hope it goes different than the fire tax. The MSB that came out last year. I have more questions on the fire tax than I do assessment questions ever since it went out because nobody else seems to answer the question and be able to answer it. Now, we were just kind of on the sideline, but we're the one they come to see. And then that's good because I feel like we can help them, we will. It's going to be very hard to cut 5% this year, but like I said, I got you 5% I hold for you, and I'll be giving that to you in probably August or September. So if I can't get it, I can get it that way. As far as the tax roll this year, I told Tim the other day when we had the budget that I estimated 10%, possibly more. I hope I'm on the high end this year. Last year, I think when I gave him an estimate in May, we wound up being a little bit on the low end, and that's the last thing I want to happen. I hope we can come in less than that, but it's just way too early right now to really tell. But I'm still looking at stuff going down for 2011, so which means next year you're going to still see some values go down. It will not be as significant, but what's happening now with the cuts we've had the last couple of years, an awful lot of that was absorbed through the Save Our Homes cap, which people weren't paying on. Well, now it's starting to come directly off the taxable. And when that happens, then that directly affects the money that the county will get. It's really right now, it's too early to say that it may not be as much as 10 or it may be more. We're sitting at about 3.5 right now, and we haven't done a third of the county yet as far as going through. But and going back to you, Randy, everybody's property value doesn't go down.
I know.
Of course, you got a new building, so yours will probably go up.
Probably.
But your biggest is mainly it's your new subdivisions and your coastal areas are the biggest ones that will be the recipient of the value coming down. But they were the ones that are recipient of the value going up, so also. Most of your old meets and bounds stuff, old Indian stuff, that values have never jumped like the others because that wasn't the desire. It was the new subdivision with the newer houses and all that, other people on the water. The water typically is the one who sees the value rise and fall so much.
Not in vacant lots too are taking a hard hit too, like.
Some, not everywhere. You know, that's why you can't really blanket it that it's all over. Some of your older subdivisions are sitting there just really not doing anything. When people come in and say, well, I've had it for sale for 2 years, nobody's made an offer. I can't qualify that means that the value's not there, or people just aren't buying, because people are scared with the economy as it is, and they're sitting on their money.
What I'm saying is, so in the flowers, they get 5 or 6 sales for $13,000 a lot. You gotta use that value to
Yes.
assess. So where they were being assessed $40,000 a lot, now you gotta assess them at $15,000 a lot. Just imagine that magnified 10, 15 times over, so.
And that's a small drop, and that's why I say when you get on the coast, you may see $100,000 to $120,000 drop on just per lot. And that's the ones, it doesn't take 10 of those and you got $1 million. So it doesn't take very long, but, hopefully, I'm on the high side of the 10%, but it's going to be at least where we were last year, or right at 10, because it's not pretty.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay, first, I'd like to apologize to the 2 constitutional officers are here if you thought I was
That's the way we
being
took it.
clear.
I'm sorry.
Because I remember pretty well who made cuts last year and who didn't, and I think it was in reference to the direction that it be 5% across the board, and I was just trying to educate our other commissioners not to expect it to be 5% across all the
It
constitutional
makes it
officers.
hard when you're one of the small people in the room to do it. But I got a question. What has happened with the money that was in this year's budget that all of a sudden we're in such a crunch? Where did it go?
Which money are you?
Well, you're saying that we need to do something about this year's budget because we don't have it. What happened to create a problem there?
Well, it's been a number of things. What we're looking for now, and the concern of the clerk as well as the auditor, is that we don't have cash. We've spent a lot of our cash in the last couple of years. We've appropriated our fund balance to fund operations. Not a good idea. We've spent a lot of cash. We bought a community center with cash, $1.4 million out the door that we can't.
This was
bring
revenue.
back.
When you say cash, you mean revenue.
Well, it's fun. It's, usually you get your influx of cash at the beginning of the year when you get your taxes, and then that floats you all throughout the year. But we pool cash in this county. We pool cash. So you're talking about your 1 cent sales tax, your impact fees, all them get put into the pool. And at the end of the year, every fund draws off that pool to make it through until we get our reboot of tax money at November and December. The pool is pretty empty. It's getting empty because we spent a lot of that cash that doesn't carry forward. It hasn't been carrying forward because we've been, obviously, to your credit, to the board's credit, they've been doing a lot. They've been paving a lot of roads. They bought a community center. So that's kind of where the situation that on top of, revenues have not been coming in like they used to be. Before, they used to exceed our expectations or estimations. They're barely hitting them. So it's just a perfect storm of a situation in a bad economy that has led us to where our cash situation is not good. And that's basically...
So are you saying we're spending money on stuff that's not budgeted?
No, not at all. What
Well,
we're doing,
I don't understand how
spending our budget.
if we've each got our budget and everything was there for that, then why is the fact that we bought a Civic Center or any of this other got anything to do with our budgets? If it wasn't in the budget.
We spent down our fund balance. That's the problem. Every year we carried a fund balance that you didn't see in the budget, about $3.2 million that you didn't see, that wasn't appropriated in the budget to shore up your budget.
I assume that's where the money I've given you back each year goes.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't get to finish my comment, though, in that because our experience last year was that not every constitutional officer was able to come in at the full 5% requested, that I'm wondering if we might need to, let's assume we aren't going to get 5% from any of them. And what does that mean for us? Because we can't force the constitutional officers to do that. So could we look at what the implications would be if our constitutional officers all stay level funding?
So this is the first budget workshop. We're going to have ones after they submit their budget, so you'll see what they submit. If there wasn't 5%, that's a decision point for the board right there. So, as to what you want to do, and you'll have other options. So
The board, but at the end of the day, the board is responsible for given every constitutional officer their money. That's the bottom line. And we got to have the political will to say we're going to cut 5%, period, or we're not. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah,
Now, they can take us to the governor and argue their case that they need all this money, and they probably will win, I don't know. But we got to have the political will to say, no, we're going to cut our budget 5%, period. And if we're not willing to do that, then we're going to have to take it, we're going to have to eat it all.
I think Donnie's the only one that can go to the governor, isn't he?
No, the sheriff can.
Donnie and the sheriff?
I'll take me to the governor, because I'm already approved by the revenue.
Donnie, you didn't rehire 2 people.
No, sir.
When did that happen?
One last year and one the year before.
Okay.
I mean, and if one were to leave now, I would just absorb it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right. I mean, I can, with time slowing down, I can get by with less now. But I'm not to the point that I want to say, well, I don't want you anymore, you go on. Because they've all got a family to raise, just like the rest of us. You know, and that's probably the hardest thing you could do in being in charge is to fire somebody.
We don't want to do that.
Right.
We don't want to do that. But if somebody leaves, boy, anybody who would like to leave is more than welcome. Making the assumption they want to leave.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Wait, I had a quick question. As we're getting ready to, one of the things that's being discussed out there is the county might end up joining in one of the lawsuits against British Petroleum gasoline. And one of the things they'd be trying to quantify is the property value drop related to the oil. Did you see any of that? I'm just curious, off the record-ish.
I could not prove it in my personal feelings that most of our drops have been through the economy.
Okay.
You know, there's probably some perception in, say, in motels, stays or something, that they felt like, or maybe coming down for charter fishing, that the water was bad. But to actually be able to put a value on it, put your hand on it, no.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I realized that also as soon as I said it out loud, but I probably should ask that later.
Okay, anything else? Mr. Kessler? You can, yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Chairman, Commissioners, just want to make a few comments. One on the health care. We're feeling in this county what the entire country is feeling. These continuing increases by the insurance companies is an unsustainable model for our country. We have to fix it, and we have to have the will to fix it, just like Commissioner Stewart, you're saying we have to have the will to balance our budget. And I urge you to look at different solutions out there, because if we allow this to continue, our businesses are not going to be able to compete with the rest of the world. And our citizens are not going to get health care. As far as the impact fees, or eliminating impact fees, I know when those taxes went up, Commissioner Merritt, you said, well, look who paid for them, all these people who are coming in and buying houses or speculating. Yes, but the impact fees are meant to be designed to produce contributions from people that are going to future impact our county. My memory is very similar to Commissioner Artz's memory on who cut what. I think that you're sitting in a room with a couple of constitutionals right now that, you know, some of these budgets have been cut right to the bone, and when they say it's to the bone, you can go over their books and you can see that they are cut to the bone. And to ask them to cut more at times is really unfair. But there are others that, well, there are other, that may not be the case. I can maybe say others. And there are there may be this political will, just like Commissioner Stewart has said, that the time is now to exercise that. You may not be able to determine what one of the largest constitutional officers really has before them as their budget, but you can spell out, you need to come in at this amount of money. And then hopefully have the will to make that happen. My memory, actually, for last year, I think, was not that it was a flat, but actually had gone up a little bit. So maybe the year before. It wasn't exactly flat for those 2 years. It actually had increased 1 year small, but certainly there was no cut. And I think that, personally, I think we all see that there are services out there that may be non-essential services. Those services can be withdrawn and still provide the law enforcement security that our citizens demand. Anyway, those are just some small thoughts, and I appreciate you allowing me to share them.
Okay, any other citizens desire to speak? Any commissioners' comments anymore? If not, we'll conclude the workshop, and thank you all for your patience.